north and east, moving northeast out of Spur, but you look what's north and east of there. That's Paducah, Texas, where they had that storm earlier today.
Where it all started earlier
exactly.
today. Paducah, Matador, back onto the west of Paducah, both had tornado warnings there at one time. So yes, this is going to be coming right back into the same area. I believe there's probably multiple tornadoes here involved. The Weather Service hasn't said that, but there's a spin right there. The radar doesn't lie. So there's a spin. Here's some spin, a little bit as well. And then this is the tornado. This is the main parent tornado. And I think you got all these multiple vortices that are wrapping in and around it. You don't go from one color to the other unless it's actually happened.
That's right.
So I believe that's what's going on there. This is going to be a massive storm too, by the way. So that's moving out of Spur and moving northward and eastward. Our other tornado warning. Get back over here to the eastern sections of Texas, but into western Oklahoma, and we run back into our severe thunderstorm warnings. We had a persistent tornado warning here for a while. But this is just not moving very much at all, the entirety of the whole line. And I think we finally let that tornado warning go.
That's right.
To the north.
Osage County no longer under a tornado warning. They dropped it. Unfortunately, you can kind of see what's downstream, severe warned storms. So the inherent rotation with these storms still there. So we have to watch this entire line as it just continues. Sad to say, over the same area time and time again. Look at this.
Coming in from the south and going northward, nothing is going south of the line that I just drew. Maybe a few isolated showers trying to form down here, but nonetheless, everything is certainly going to rain itself, well, maybe not rain out, but it's going to rain for a while in this corridor, between those two lines that I just drew. That's going to be a bad situation there. We go further to the north into the next tornado warning over into Springfield. This is the Springfield office in Missouri handling this tornado warning. There are two storms there, but a likely tornado on this south storm near Greenfield that we were looking at, Joe, and this is a strong thunderstorm with a likely tornado for the next 16 minutes there for Cedar and Dade County.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of keeping tabs on some of the storm reports coming in out of Greenfield. Trees reported down on homes, 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts at least. And, of course, let's see, strong rotation observed in the cloud cover around Highway 160 and South Dade County 115. So right there we are seeing, unfortunately, a lot of those indications that we are seeing some rotation.
Just northwest of the city of Springfield, we got a thunderstorm coming into the northwestern part of town there near Willard that we'll be looking at north of Springfield, but going over to Boulevard and up to, Camdenton. These are upstream towns that we'll be watching and taking a look at as we go through the next couple of hours. All strong thunderstorms, all within the area there that is concerning to us. And you can see as we go back and forth across the region, some of the heavier precipitation amounts that we're seeing there too. I want to show you some of the satellite imagery. This is the last image about 10 minutes ago. I mean, look at that. Shows you what's going on within our thunderstorm complex back over in the state of Texas. Here's Arkansas, the few thunderstorms we've had there. But then you get into the bubbly area where you see a little bit of shadow.
That's right.
Yeah, this is telling us this is where we have that whole line. This is the drier air back to the west, which has the breaks in the cloud cover, but then moreover, we're looking at the thunderstorm activity that goes right in the arc of our warm front, right there.
Yeah, that's kind of the two boundaries we've been keeping tabs on. The dry line to the west, and then up to the north, we have that warm front that has been pretty hard pressed to move to the north. I mean, it has been, but unfortunately for those in that line of fire, that's why we've been seeing the severe and the flooding time and time again.
Time and time again, and those are the big thunderstorms that go southward all the way through the area there. A little bit more sunshine across the central portions of the state of Texas, but nonetheless, this is the storyteller here, is that right in this area, right across northern Oklahoma, is where we find most of the likelihood of having the stronger thunderstorms. And if we look at the latest, actually, let's go to Oklahoma City, and we'll take a look at these rainfall totals again, because they are a stark contrast across the area. Some of these rainfall totals have been really high up near Enid and beyond, where we've had as much as 2-3 inches of rain, and I think right there's a 3 or 4 inches. So right in these areas, we're certainly prone to have some flash flooding occur. I think that is going to be the case, and it's probably already happened in a few areas here as well. We can take a look. We'll go down to the south a little bit and take a look at what's happened here in and around Elk City. There's some of the higher amounts there too. Anywhere you see yellow, we're likely looking at 1 inch to 2 inches of rainfall. So the other facet to this that we'll have to watch is to see how much rain we get.
Yeah, and again, some confirmed reports from some of the rain gauges out there, 3 to 4 inches in states like Kansas down into Oklahoma, so it is verifying. Unfortunately, the risk for severe weather not quite done. We have several warnings from West Texas all the way up into Missouri.
Into Missouri, and right now into Midland, brand new tornado warning, Glasscock. And now Howard County is also included with this storm east of Midland. We're Weather Nation. We'll be right back.
This is Kate.
Hey.
She takes 2 prescriptions. Kate's son Jack takes 1 too. Kate works hard and thought she had good insurance. But she still pays too much. That's no good. So Kate downloaded the GoodRx app. Now she can compare prescription prices to find the best discounts. She even beats her insurance price. Good for you, Kate. Good for you. GoodRx. Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
Your phone slides off the console and falls at your feet. Get the new Fastball. It's the magnetic mount that holds any device tight. Fastball combines a steel ball and magnetic socket to create the ultimate media mount. Now you can adjust your phone 360 degrees to any angle, any position, and your phone stays securely in place. Then releases with a light tug. Just pick your spot and stick it up. Then place the ultra-thin magnetic disc on the back of your phone or case. It adjusts and holds in any viewing angle. Perfect for hands-free calling or video chats. Streaming your music. Or swivel for GPS maps.
Turn right.
Look, vent mounts are flimsy. Suction cup mounts always let go. But the Fastball mounts easily anywhere you like, in the perfect viewing position. And it holds on tight. Fastball won't let go until you say so. It's the perfect mount for tablets, too. Call and get the incredible Fastball for just $19.99. But wait, call right now and we'll double it to 2 absolutely free. That's 2 Fastball mounts for just $19.99. Call now.
Call 1-800-299-3072. That's 1-800-299-3072. Or visit byfastball.com. So call 1-800-299-3072 or visit byfastball.com. Order now.
Closed captioning for Weather Nation is brought to you by GoodRx.
GoodRx is an easy way for Americans to save up to 80% on their prescriptions. You type in the name of your prescription, you find a coupon, and save.
We're back here on Weather Nation, keeping tabs on that risk for strong to severe storms across the southern plains, even into the overnight hours, so you want to keep it tuned here. In the meantime, we want to dive on into what's happening elsewhere across the country. Yeah, it's snowing out there. This was earlier on Monday in Jackson, Wyoming. Winter wonderland there for May 20th, that's for sure. And we have numerous areas across the Northwest that will be getting in line with a little bit more active weather in the form of snow and rain. It's a very cloudy and cool pattern. Localized flooding, too, a big concern. And, of course, the high elevation snow, especially off towards the east. States like Wyoming, Montana, even Idaho, seeing some of that snow. How about this? We've got this all the way into Tuesday and Wednesday with winter weather alerts, even an advisory right around Cheyenne, the capital of Wyoming, up into the Black Hills of South Dakota. Very colorful map. I mean, we are active. This is typically our transition into the dry season across portions of the Northwest, but Not today, that's for sure. Look at some of this wet weather. That'll continue into tomorrow, really. We have some snow and some rain into Oregon, some showers into Washington State, even into tomorrow, and a lot of snow from Montana and Wyoming down into Colorado. Even adjoining portions of the Great Plains states could see some of that wintry weather as well. 30s for some lows in many areas, quite chilly, but check out Cheyenne. 29 degrees to start off your Tuesday morning. We'll be in the 40s across the rest of the region. And this is going to stay very active here. Look at all this wet weather, low pressure, keeping things very active across Montana and Wyoming. We will see a few spotty showers across southern Oregon, but we will see a few breaks of sunshine into our Wednesday morning by the time we get out and about in Seattle. Here's a look at those Tuesday highs. 70 in Spokane, the warm spot on the map. 64 in Boise, 62 in Medford. We've got the 40s for highs. These are high temperatures, folks. It is going to be chilly. Just 35 in Cheyenne for Tuesday. I wish this was a cruel joke, but it's not. We are some 15 to 30 degrees below normal over into the Intermountain West, and we'll likely see that rain and cloud cover and snow shower chance just kind of settle in through Wednesday and Thursday, while the Northwest really begins to quiet down here for our Wednesday and Thursday. That's going to allow for the warmth to return. How about some 70s back on track for those of you in Portland, Seattle, 70s again in Spokane, down into Boise. We will see the 50s and 60s into the Intermountain West, and still hanging on to some chilly 40s across the cowboy state of Wyoming. That's where we find this. Lots of wintry weather. Some of the highest terrain could see 6 to 12 inches or more of snowfall across several of these states, extending into the Black Hills, on down into Colorado. Back to the west, though, just a few inches of high elevation snow, mainly rain shower action in the lower elevations. And in Seattle, we could see a few showers again on Tuesday. Pretty typical forecast here, 66 degrees, close to the average high. Then we dry out and get back into the 70s. With a nice mix of sun and clouds. So if we can move beyond the first couple of days of the week, we'll be A-OK. Likewise in Missoula, we'll start to warm on up. Now with a look at what's happening a bit further to the south, here's Matt.
Okay, thank you very much. Here in the Southwest, it remains pretty active region in our country. Unsettled weather pattern, that's going to continue. It'll continue to bring rain to the valleys and more snow out across our mountains here. Otherwise, pretty cool and breezy for mid to late May, a little bit below average temperature-wise. We've got winter weather alerts galore here out across southeastern Wyoming. Winter weather warnings here out across Colorado, down and through northern New Mexico, where it's actually a good thing because they need the moisture here. It's been a little dry north of Albuquerque. A lot of the snow is kind of cleared up out across Nevada, and still some winter weather advisories for lingering snow out across California and also southern Oregon. So we've got the moisture coming in from the Pacific Ocean working across the region. We've seen some decent snowfall out across the Colorado Rockies over the past 24 hours. We've seen some snowfall down through southern and southwestern Utah and also the higher elevations here of Arizona. The snow is winding down here in California after a lot of snow coming down out across the Sierra Nevada. All right, severe weather the rest of today. Got to watch out for the eastern plains of Colorado. Extreme northeastern New Mexico could be seeing a couple of strong to severe storms fire there. Otherwise, the rest of the region should be severe weather free, but not weather free and not moisture free. We still have moisture coming in from this front right here. Overnight through early on Tuesday morning, it spells potentially a little bit more snow here for central and northern Nevada. That does include Interstate 80. So if you plan on traveling that highway, definitely want to take it nice and slow there with some snow coming on down. Reno, it's rain for you, and that's pretty much the mountain snow winding on down out across the Sierra Nevada. Tuesday morning lows, 42 Grand Junction, 32 in Denver, upper 30s in Farmington, lower 40s down through Albuquerque. Phoenix, you start your day off at about 57 degrees, upper 20s and real chilly out across Flagstaff, 52 Bakersfield, 38 degrees, also chilly out across Reno. Tuesday high temperatures, 46 degrees in Denver, got the upper 50s in Farmington, almost 10 degrees warmer in Albuquerque, but still for late May, 68. Albuquerque usually is a little bit warmer. There it is. There's an 80 in Roswell, 81 in El Paso. Vegas doing pretty nicely there at about 74, and Reno cool at about 52 degrees. Bakersfield, LA, San Diego, all in the mid-60s. We still have lots of moisture here through Tuesday afternoon. There's some more mountain snow out across Colorado, more moisture tracking right across Nevada and also Utah. It's mainly rain, but higher elevations will start picking up some more snow. There is some more mountain snow out across the Sierra Nevada.
A violent day of weather and now a violent evening anticipated across the plains from Missouri to Arkansas, down through Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis in Oklahoma City. We have team coverage for you tonight. Our team's out in the field, and of course our meteorologist at the Weather Channel headquarters. Here in Oklahoma City, we are under a PDS tornado watch. Particularly dangerous situation as deemed by the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma. What that means is anticipating large, violent, long-track tornadoes, and potentially many of them. So that watch goes until 10 o'clock tonight for Oklahoma City, but watches extend across multiple states for us this evening. If you take a look at the skyline, this is how it has looked all day long. Cloudy, overcast, at times even threatening with some really dark gray clouds, but nothing's really happened for us yet in central Oklahoma. Everything seems to be firing along a front that's draped across northern Oklahoma, then back through western Oklahoma. That's been the trigger for the storms today, and several of them have been tornado warned. Not to mention, we have a significant flash flood and flood risk for the remainder of the evening, and so for many people, you could be under both simultaneously, Alex, which is obviously a very dangerous thing when you consider you're trying to take shelter potentially from a tornado, but maybe that puts you in a susceptible situation for flooding. Maybe your basement floods or your neighborhood floods. What do you do? Very complex situation where, of course, over the next hour, we'll sort it all out for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've got really all threats on the table. So that is a very good point. You know, you've got that basement. You think, oh, this is my safe spot. But with that rain and flood threat, it might be unavailable. I want to show you some video that's been coming into us here at the Weather Channel as far as storms. Well, here's what we know right now. The SPC has issued a high risk for portions of Texas and Oklahoma. We have the possibility of strong, long track and violent tornadoes likely, as Mike mentioned, and that particularly includes parts of Arkansas as well. That is a non
Severe weather happening right now across the southern plains. Tornado outbreak underway. Brand new video to share with you from not too long ago. Look how close this tornado was. This is it passed through Mangum, Oklahoma. Wow. Huge tornado there behind those neighborhood homes. David, very scary stuff. And we also have another video to share with you from the area, again, of that same storm. Pretty wild activity there in Mangum, Oklahoma.
Quite a bit of video. We've seen this same tornado. It's taken on many different facets, structures. I mean, we saw this thing. It was kind of like a drill bit there for a while out over an open field, and now it's an elongated, almost an elephant trunk look to it there, and a high base. But we know this was a big bad tornado. We've seen it on the radar. We knew it was going to be bad, and now we're getting confirmation of that with a video.
Yeah, I mean, you can clearly see it right there. Very active. That storm no longer tornado warned, but we are still seeing some inherent rotation with these supercells.
Yeah, quite a few tornado warnings down to the south. Actually, Midland, Odessa has been a hot spot there for a while. Now we have 2 separate tornado warnings down to the south. We go to the Midland radar. Both look very well formed. This one to the south, Joe, is just prototypical of a Texas tornado with a hook echo. It used to be the only way back in the day when I started. You only had 3 colors to the radar, and we didn't have velocity data, so you mainly went by the hook echo. Was one of the ways of knowing what you had there.
That's right.
But now we have, look at this.
Look at that.
There's no doubt this is a well-formed tornado down there just to the east of Benj Corner. The inbound and the outbound is very tightly packed. There's your forward flank downdraft to the storm. Shows up very well. The rear flank downdraft on the other side, but right into the tornado. This is a no-brainer. This is an easy call right here, and the Weather Service has that pegged as a tornado warning. Do you know any more about it there?
Well, aside from seeing it obviously on the radar, it has been confirmed as 19 miles south of Greenwood, moving northeast at 40. So intersection of State Highway 349, Ranch Road 1787. A few minutes ago, that's where it was located, and it's lifting north and east about 40 miles per hour.
No-brainer there. Then just south of Big Spring, we have another tornado warning. Glasscock and Howard County out of this storm. Seems to be cycling a little bit, but just to the south of Big Spring and moving on eastward across the rest of the region. Look out for that tornado warning as it goes on to the east. Now, just to the south of Post, we were watching this other tornado that we've been looking at through the day today. There it is, just to the east and south of Post and moving northeastward. A likely tornado near Justisburg and headed on to the northeast. It was located there near Lake Allen Henry, moving northeast at 30 miles per hour. A likely tornado associated with that storm just east again of Justisburg and Augustus and moving northeastward. Second one, and this looks big and bad and mean, east of Dickens now near Guthrie. This is producing both a tornado, I think, very near Corner Windmill, and an outflow boundary that is just as deadly looking here as it goes like this. But there's your likely tornado associated with the storm right there.
Yeah, indeed. Again, big concerns with this into Kent and Garza counties, I believe, there in the Lubbock area. Again, this is moving northeast as well very quickly. So a lot of inherent rotation, a lot of tornado potential still, even as we head into the evening hours.
4 tornado warnings there across that portion of Texas. So that's going to be our new battleground to begin with that we do know we have. Back into Oklahoma, we've seen a little bit of a lull, but more of a linear situation. And these storms are just running over each other, so they're not going to. The good thing here is that it's a conglomeration of storms. They're not discrete supercells any longer, and so the likelihood here of having tremendous amounts of rainfall, still a tornado or two is very possible on the northern fringes, but right now it's severe thunderstorm warnings north of Hobart, where we had tornado warnings earlier.
That's right.
And a lot of the video we've been seeing through the day today was Adam Mangum, the one that's right beneath us here. Same storm, a little bit different look to it now. We don't see the inbound and the outbound that we saw earlier that was giving us the tornado warning, and we'll just have to watch and monitor that very close.
Yeah, still certainly could see some 60, 70 plus mile per hour wind gusts as it approaches north towards Weatherford. And again, you'll notice north of Oklahoma City and on up towards areas northwest of Tulsa, pretty strong thunderstorm still racing its way across Osage County.
And then outside of Bartlesville, we go northward over to Missouri. We'll look at the Springfield radar. That is severe thunderstorm warnings there that are showing up across the area as well, Joe.
Indeed. And of course, real quickly, we want to turn things over to our field correspondent, Tony Russell. Tony, joining us from Oklahoma City. Can you give us an idea of what's been happening out there so far?
Man, we've dodged it. I mean, everything's just kind of circulating around the Oklahoma City metro. But there are some, there's a lot of thought out there that behind all of this, if there isn't any severe weather, the real severe threat is more flash flooding. But behind me, Oklahoma City, it's just windy. There's a lot of humidity in the air, and we're just watching those storms. You can literally just look from this vantage point all across the Oklahoma City metro. This is to the south, but to the north, you can just see where that system is just kind of skirting around the Oklahoma City metro area. So again, I'm going to be watching some of those storms if and when they roll through the area. But for the main part, I did a little bit of driving around here, guys, and it's a ghost town. I know it's Monday night, but still, some of those main populated streets and kind of the north side of downtown, and even by some of the park areas on the southern edge of downtown Oklahoma City, people got the warning message and they got off the streets. And I was looking at people trying to pull on the doors of some of the restaurants. You could see where they posted something about the inclement weather. So everyone got the warnings. That's the good news. Now the question is tonight, if we do get some of that localized street flooding and some flash flooding, will people turn around? That's the main thing. I want people to make sure that if they can't see the stripes on the road tonight, they're most likely driving into a flooded road area, and that's not a place you want to be. It could be very deadly.
Indeed it can. And again, Tony, we appreciate you from joining us there in Oklahoma City. It's good to hear people are heeding the warnings. We're hopeful they do so even into tonight. Of course, here on Weather Nation, we'll continue to follow these thunderstorms. One last look of Viper Doppler radar shows a big line of severe thunderstorms back across Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and numerous tornado warnings down into West Texas. We'll continue our severe weather coverage coming up in just a couple of minutes right here in Weather Nation. Again, tornado warnings happening right now across Texas. Severe weather across the southern plains. Stay tuned.
Season after season, year after year, customers have found that when it comes to replacing their windows, there's only one company to call: Renewal by Andersen. Call 1-800-493-3402 now. So what makes Renewal by Andersen so good? It starts with quality. We actually pulled 10 of our original windows from a home. Windows that had been through 20 years of brutal Minnesota winters and muggy summers. We then performed extensive technical tests on all of them to see how they held up. 2 decades later, they still opened and closed as easily as the day they were installed. And our Fibrex material remained incredibly strong with no cracking, peeling, or chipping. What's Fibrex material? An innovative composite material, exclusive to Andersen, that provides strength and durability, far surpassing vinyl. In fact, it won't warp or bow over time like vinyl does. Yet quality windows are just part of the story. Go with Renewal by Andersen and you get Renewal by Andersen Signature Service, the perfect blend of the best people in the industry, a superior process, and an exclusive product. From our professional and thorough design consultants of the start, to our certified master installers who put in your windows with unmatched precision and care, our only intent throughout is to exceed your expectations. What's more, unlike many other window companies, we manufacture and install our own windows. So our industry-leading limited warranty covers both the product and the installation. This Renewal by Andersen Signature Service has earned 4.7 stars in customer satisfaction from more than 500,000 happy customers across the nation. Get the window replacement solution proven to stand the test of time, plus the peace of mind that comes from a superior service experience. That's Renewal by Andersen. Call 1-800-493-3402 today and get 20% off your entire order with this exclusive TV offer. Again, that's 800-493-3402 for 20% off. Plus, get no money down, no interest, and no payments for 12 months. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window.
Leaf Filter, the nation's #1 rated gutter protection system. Leaf Filter starts by cleaning, sealing, and realigning your gutters. We then install our micro mesh screen over your existing gutters, which is guaranteed to filter out everything except for water. Call or log on today and save 15%.
We're back here on Weather Nation with your Eastern regional forecast. We'll get you started with some stormy looking skies. Scary stuff here on Sunday in Remsen, New York, where we saw some very active severe weather. We actually saw plenty of that too earlier this evening. Now, as we take a look at the forecast, we are going to still see a few showers and thunderstorms linger into tonight, mainly up into areas of New England and far coastal areas there. For many of us, we will begin to dry out, although we will see some active weather returning back to the west with a brief cool down behind the front. And I stress the word brief. Here's a look at the lows, though. It is certainly going to be chilly in Buffalo, 42 for the overnight low, 45 for the low in Detroit, nearly 60 degrees, though, to start the day in Philadelphia, and still pretty mild for New York, Philly, Washington, D.C. for Tuesday. We will see that high temperature right around the 70 to 72 degree mark. Notice we've got the 60s back towards Detroit and Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, just 51, though, in Chicago, and we'll see some 50s up into New England as well. Notice no severe weather for the East Coast. However, you're probably looking back towards the Midwest, where cities like St. Louis in the risk for some strong to severe weather on Tuesday. As we look at the forecast, high pressure keeping many areas quiet. Again, a little bit of rain into northern Maine, and then our next storm system bringing some wet weather to the Chicagoland area, perhaps as far east as Fort Wayne and South Bend, Indiana. A few spotty thunderstorms may try to move into Toledo, Detroit by late Tuesday afternoon. Not going to see a whole lot there. The main event, though, is well off to the west. High pressure is going to keep things pretty quiet across the region. Fairly dry, too, for many from Ohio and Michigan all the way to the East Coast for Tuesday and Tuesday night. Now, as we take a peek at Wednesday morning, here comes a few thunderstorms into the Ohio Valley. So Louisville, Cincinnati, up towards, let's say Indianapolis could see some of those morning storms. We're going to see a push of warmth too. There you go, warming back up into the 80s in Chicago, Indy, Lexington at 87. Not quite as warm off towards the east, but pretty nice into the Great Lakes and Northeast with some 70s for highs and some 60s hanging on into portions of New England. Now, as far as severe weather goes, nothing anticipated here, although some thunderstorms back towards the Great Lakes could be a little bit more isolated and gusty in nature. We'll watch those as the warm front lifts to the north. Just enough instability that a few pop-up showers and storms, maybe even persisting into our Thursday morning. So how much rain can we expect as these showers and storms move through? Luckily, we're not expecting a washout. Unfortunately, back towards the upper Midwest, we could see a lot of heavy rain there. We'll talk about that forecast coming up. In the meantime, we've got some of that rain that will be on the heavier side into a few isolated pockets of northern Maine, but again, not a big washout. Here's a picture of your New York City forecast, and you'll see those highs staying into the 70s, maybe another chance for storms in New York City early on in the upcoming weekend. In Washington, D.C., sunshine, highs in the 70s, bumping back up to the 80s, and a few spotty storms on Thursday. And our last stop will take you to Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll go from 70 on Tuesday to the 90s. Thursday and Friday, it's going to get hot there in the Queen City.
Okay, thank you very much. Here in the southeast, our top of the headlines, hot and humid conditions, and yeah, it's right on track for this time of the year here in the southeast. We will pick up some spotty showers and storms, mainly in the western portion of the southeastern region. We'll show you where in a second. Otherwise, for the majority of the southeast, a lot of dry time. Chance of severe storms the rest of today and tonight would be confined here across eastern Virginia and also from Little Rock back out to the west. Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri. That is really the high priority today as far as storms and severe storms. But once you get east of Little Rock, it should stay fairly quiet the rest of today and tonight. There's a little stalled out front right across the region. Out ahead of it, some extra clouds, maybe a few spotty showers out across eastern North Carolina. Otherwise, the big storms, the tornadoes, they will continue to fire up out across that dry line across Texas, Oklahoma, and portions of Kansas. Now, as far as Tuesday high temperatures, Atlanta, 90 degrees, Nashville also 90 throughout your day on Tuesday. So there's some of the heat and humidity. Columbus, Georgia, down towards Fort Benning, 92 degrees. 84 in Charleston, 93 out across Jacksonville, 84 down through Miami, 90 Jackson, upper 80s out across New Orleans. So you get the idea. It is going to be a hot day on Tuesday. Severe weather threat is going to creep a little further to the east, out across Little Rock, down through northern Louisiana, back across eastern Oklahoma and Texas and points up to the north. But again, the majority of the southeast will stay severe weather free. Just got to watch it as far as Arkansas and northwestern Louisiana. Showers, storms, thunderstorms, high winds, hail, tornadoes. It's all going to be back in play on Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night. This is now ahead of it. And again, a few clouds, a few spotty showers throughout the southeast, but otherwise we're in really good shape. It'll stay hot again on Wednesday. 89 Atlanta, 92 degrees out across Columbus, Jackson at about 91 degrees for you, 90 across New Orleans, and then low 90s in Tampa, middle 80s down through Miami. But you got to keep in mind, even though it's 84 degrees in Miami, the humidity is going to be absolutely sweltering with dew points way above 70. Severe weather threats on Wednesday. Yeah, we're looking a lot quieter by midweek. Even far back to the west, we lose a lot of the threat out across Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. There'll be a couple of stronger storms, mainly along a dry line in West Texas, but out ahead of it again, some clouds, maybe a couple of spotty showers and non-severe thunderstorms, but generally speaking, the southeast should stay fairly quiet. Thursday high temperatures, lower 90s in Charlotte, Atlanta, Columbus, back up to 95 degrees, 94 in Tampa, close to 90 in Jacksonville, middle 80s, down through Miami, New Orleans at about 90 degrees. So over the next 2 or 3 days, the majority of rain is going to stay back out to the west. Extremely heavy rain out across Oklahoma, up through Kansas. Portions here of central and west central Arkansas could be picking up between 2 and 4 inches of rainfall there. Charlotte for you though, yeah, all the way through Friday, beautiful weather. Upper 80s on Tuesday, lower 80s on Wednesday, heating up low to mid 90s on Thursday and Friday, and then the weekend is gorgeous, but it definitely stays hot. 94 on Saturday, we'll do it again on Sunday.
Pain, swelling,
Getting some new video in of that tornado near Mangum, Oklahoma earlier this evening, and you can see that well-defined stovepipe tornado right down the center of the screen. A lot of dust at the surface, and Dr. Forbes, something you were referring to is the width of that dust envelope down there at the surface.
Yeah, it really is. You obviously can see this stovepipe tornado, but the dust comes way out beyond that, so the winds are pretty strong out in the edge here. Even a little bit, seems like there's, and Alex, you were noticing that there seems to be a little bit of downward motion.
Right, especially here, you can begin to see those clouds start to sink down.
And so what I think has happened is some of that rain-cooled air, the rear flank downdraft, has wrapped around behind the tornado and then is coming down and sinking. And so that's sort of stripping away some of the motion on the edge of that and giving you some of that sinking appearance. Now, sometimes when that sinking air gets right down to the ground, it gets recirculated. And since that air aloft has already been spinning with a supercell, when it gets recirculated like that, it can intensify or it helps keep the tornado going. And that's what we're seeing here. Look at there, the width of the dust cloud has gotten real wide again. And there they've zoomed in to see. Look at the trees blowing in there. So they've zoomed in to see if it's going to hit this farmstead.
Yeah, and almost interesting that the one on the left there, you can see some of the damage, also some of the flashes as the electrical lines get struck. A lot of the debris then strewn across the field.
Yeah,
and
there's
also
the rear flank
close.
downdraft that we're in right now. The strong winds that I was talking about have wrapped around and it's turned quickly into rain.
Yeah, but it goes to show you your positioning is everything. We went from an exceptionally clear view of that tornado to no view of it.
Yeah, this
scary
is
stuff.
Scary. Indeed it is. And
I'm
look how
wondering,
fast the winds are blowing from left to right across here now in this rear flank downdraft.
Absolutely.
We've had some winds measured today up to 94 miles per hour that I've seen in some of these storms. So that's a testament to the strong jet stream aloft that is fanning some of these storms when the downdraft gets hit just right by those winds.
Yeah, those winds are screaming. Let's listen in. This is another angle of the storm.
And great. Okay, we gotta stop. Power flash. Power lines are gonna come down.
Keep going.
Holy smokes.
Sit right here. There it is. Sit right. Don't go any further.
Oh my God.
Listen to it.
Look at this. Holy smokes. You're gonna blast with RFD. Put your window up. Just cross the road.
It didn't hit anything right here. That's good.
You mentioned that the tornado really illuminated there in white based on the sun angle there.
Yeah, from that perspective, and you could see at times some sheet metal that was flying
Yeah.
across the screen. Now, from this perspective, the tornado is moving from right to left and pretty quickly across the area.
Obviously, you know, at times we had a report of a large tornado, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So not as much of a stovepipe as much as a wedge here.
Big cone, yeah, it's gone into a big cone shape at this point, yeah.
Yeah, pretty incredible to watch this thing pan out. Frequent lightning with this, you know, a lot of open landscape here. However, we did see in that previous video there were some motels, other structures, and people out on the roads. I'm guessing a lot of them were storm trackers, but just stopping on the road to let that storm pass. In that case, lucky they were able to make it out.
Yeah, hopefully the citizens were doing that as well.
Yeah.
I did see in the one video a light that was coming right down the road into the tornado and into that rear flying downdraft, so I hope everyone is okay.
Yeah, and here's a look at that video once again, and you can
debris.
see how far away that debris is lofted from the tornado itself. So it goes to show you don't want to be even anywhere near this thing, because a lot of times this debris is pieces of metal, pieces of wood, you know, things that you don't want to be hit by.
Yeah, and big sheets of rain just scooting right across the road, blown by the wind.
Yeah, there's again another look as this thing grew in intensity. Now we see the damage with the result of that, and there you can see those large tree limbs splintered off. This car looks like all the windows that I can see taken out because of the debris that was flying around with this storm, and you can see all the dents in the car itself as it was pelted by the debris. Still some rain likely coming down in this area in this video, but there a large tree completely broken off, debris scattered around the field. Yeah, this is a live picture, so we still have some rain showers over here in western Oklahoma, dark sky, but a good bit of damage to this home.
Yeah, indeed, tremendous amounts of damage, and I think more and more we'll see that as we've had a particularly dangerous situation, one in which we could get strong, violent, and long-lived type tornadoes. Wanted to show you here in the big perspective what's likely to happen yet this evening. We have tornado warnings right over in the edge of all this white and yellow. What is that? Well, that's where we have strong or even off-the-charts amounts of instability, warm, moist, unstable air. As these storms move east into that, nothing that is going to stop them. For the moment, they've been running along the edge of that, but I think even that will change, because you can see here now the upper air feature, the cold pocket aloft beginning to push east, and that will push the storms with them. So these big high top thunderstorms will begin to march back into untapped air in Oklahoma, where at the moment we don't have any tornado warnings. Where we have the warnings are in Texas, east of the Midland Odessa area. Look at the hook on this one. Glasscock and Midland counties, likely to be a tornado in this one. Fortunately, pretty rural areas, and the circulation not as strong as it has in terms of the shape of the hook. Then farther to the north, Howard and Mitchell counties with a tornado warning. The tornado would be right there heading toward the Iatan area, the Conaway School area. The circulation not extremely strong on this one. Still pretty strong storm on this one. Kent County in Texas with a hook echo heading toward the Jayton area. Velocity showing up there. And one more tornado just to the east of Guthrie, King County with a tornado warning. We'll continue to keep you updated on all of these threats. Stay safe. We'll be right back.
is a dark and stormy evening across the plains, and severe weather is likely across numerous states, including right here in Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettison. Thank you for staying with us for continuing coverage right here on the Weather Channel. A quick view of the skies behind us here, and that is a really intense line of storms from north of Oklahoma City back to the west. It's been a very slow progression with this storm complex. And what it really tells you is we're going to see a lot of flooding, likely from heavy downpours from that, where we may be transitioning from more of a supercell and individual tornado threat to more of an MCS, as we call it, our mesoscale convective system, which can produce tornadoes, but also can produce copious amounts of rain, and the threat for flooding, we think, is certainly there for the remainder of the evening. Let's get some details, though, on all these warnings, because they have been coming fast and furious throughout the day. Let's return to the Weather Channel headquarters and our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes.
Thanks, Mike. And some of the worst storms right now are in the eastern part of the Texas Panhandle down to southwest Texas. I thought I'd show you here towards sunset with the sun shining on these high-topped, overshooting tops of the thunderstorms, where the updraft comes way up into the stratosphere. You see the shadows on this side, the bright on that side. So there is where one of these updrafts, one of these supercell thunderstorms, still producing a tornado or capable of, is rolling across areas east of Lubbock. There's more of these overshooting tops showing up as well. So here is one of these storms that we were just talking about, still a couple of other tornado-warned storms, beginning to get a line that's turning into a bow echo that's ultimately heading toward the Tulsa area as well. Let's start from the south and work our way north here, down to the south and east of Midland, Texas. I think you could see this hook echo wrapping around there. There's one of these supercell thunderstorms with the big high overshooting tops, Glasscock and Midland counties with a tornado warning. Fortunately, pretty rural farmland areas south of and southwest of Forson, Texas, is where the threat will be. Still pretty well-defined circulation with this. Then just to the northeast of Forson, Howard and Mitchell counties with a tornado warning. The spinning double bird wing structure, this storm heading a possible tornado up toward the Iatan, the Westbrook, the Colorado City area. Not extremely strong rotation left with this one, not too far away from Coahoma there, where the strongest of circulation is. Then next storm up the line in Texas, Kent County. You see the hook echo there. That one, a tornado threat heading up toward the Rising Star School area. Going to go probably just west and north of Jayton, Texas. This storm has lost its tornado warning. Cottle and King counties near Guthrie. It has produced some damage, though, at times. And should it recycle, cycle meaning develops its rotation, that would be coming towards, say, the Ford City, the Crowell area of Texas, and it still has some rotation showing up there. So this is one that could very well recycle. Here up into the Missouri area, these storms have scooted off to the north and west of Springfield, no longer severe. These are the storms that are still almost moving along themselves. Can you see that? But once this line starts to march east, it will turn severe again, may resume the tornado threat. Right at the moment, mostly a flash flood threat. Our future radar says this line of storms pushed by the upper air forcing that's starting to move east is going to move east into the Tulsa, into the Oklahoma City area overnight with that threat for damaging winds. And there's still a tornado threat as well as a flash flood threat from these storms, especially in the places where they're training. Alex?
And then tomorrow we have the threat for more severe weather. Don't want to discount the danger as we head into Tuesday. Likelihood for severe storms focused over parts of northern Arkansas into much of the state of Missouri, as well as western parts of Illinois. So this includes the St. Louis metro area. So there will be a lot of people under the threat for severe weather and perhaps flash flooding again tomorrow. Plenty of moisture streaming to the north out of the Gulf of Mexico, and that cold front, that potent cold front, is going to help to lift that warm, moist air, and that's going to allow the showers, the thunderstorms to develop, and we think some supercell thunderstorms. Our mid-level jet will help to enhance the supercell potential, and the supercell storms are those individual or discrete storms that oftentimes produce the very big hail and also the threat for the more dangerous or destructive tornadoes. Future radar, let's start things off at 8 a.m. There's the flash flooding threat that Dr. Forbes mentioned, still ongoing across parts of Oklahoma and Kansas with very heavy rain. We get you through the day and you can see a leading line of thunderstorms with some thunderstorms also up into parts of Missouri that may be a bit more discrete, a bit more individual. So we'll be watching for that as we go through the evening. St. St. Louis comes into play as we get you towards, say, 7, 8 o'clock local time. Those storms continue to work eastward as we get into the overnight. By 1 a.m. on Wednesday, we could be looking at some strong storms approaching a place like Memphis, Paducah, Kentucky, and even approaching Indianapolis during the early morning hours of your Wednesday. Tomorrow, Torcon values up to a 4, so not as high as today, but still worthy of taking note of. If you live in these areas, make sure you're thinking about your safe spot. Central southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, a 3 out of 10. Farther to the south and west. We'll be back after this.
Thank you for staying with us live here on the Weather Channel. I'm Justin Michaels, live for you right now in Wichita, Kansas. And you know, we've been tracking severe weather all day long. We're talking a very severe tornado threat. And here in Wichita, we're talking about flood warnings. In fact, flash flood warnings, a aerial flood warning for tonight into tomorrow, and in fact, even a high wind warning is now in place here in Wichita. Now, of course, in Wichita, they deal with high winds all the time, but still, the warning is in place. We moved inside because of the dangers outside. thunder and lightning, and it was the wise thing to do to come inside and get out of the elements, at least for this one live shot for you. So here in Wichita, we are dealing with that flash flood threat and warning all night long into tomorrow, and even potentially all day tomorrow into tomorrow night. So doing what you should do, and that's either staying inside or turning around and don't drown, is what we're trying to do, is the best thing you can do, because the threat is real, folks. Let's talk to Cody Sharvett. He is with Emergency Management here in Sedgwick County. Cody, thank you for being with us.
You bet, Justin.
So tell me, Cody, when you go into an event like this, from an emergency management perspective, your number one goal is to keep people safe and alive. What do you do, and what's the message?
Well, the message is to folks, be aware of the situation and keep your eye on the weather, keep your eye on the local media, the Weather Channel, whoever it is that's your favorite. Know what the situation is, know how to keep yourself safe. And on nights like this, if you don't have to be out, just stay at home, because the flash flooding that we're already dealing with, the long-term flooding we're going to be dealing with after that, indeed, we want people to stay safe.
And Cody, tell me, you deal with the high winds here, and flooding is becoming a norm here too.
It is. We had another flooding event just earlier this month, maybe about 8, 10, 12 days ago, something like that, when the rivers were peaking. And so a lot of those same rivers are going to crest again, this time even a little bit higher. Most of them are going to be anywhere from 1.5 feet to half a foot high, or somewhere in that range, because the ground was so saturated. All this rain that's coming down now is instant runoff, and it's going straight into those rivers and streams.
And we still have a long time to go.
We do, with more rain expected overnight and into. People are going to be tempted to drive through that water-covered roadway, and they just can't. They have to find that safe, dry route around it.
As far as the aerial flooding, Cody, most people call it the Arkansas River. That's fine. Let's not get into the details there, but still, that's also flooding.
Yes, the Big Arc.
The Big Arc.
We can call it that way, and everybody stays neutral. The Arc is going to flood probably in the northwest parts of town up near Mount Hope, and then in the southeast part of the county down around Derby and Mulvane. Those peaks, again, aren't going to be seen until sometime Tuesday or even into Wednesday before we see that. Now, we are lucky here, as the folks know, what we call the Big Ditch locally, the Valley Center Wichita Flood Control Project, keeps the downtown area of Wichita safe, and that diverts that water out of the main channel. So we're not looking at, devastating flooding, thank goodness, but that flash flooding is sure a big concern.
Cody Sharvett, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Stay safe out there, you too. All right, so as we go into Dr. Knabb, of course, water is the most deadly thing we can talk about, that flash flooding. People get caught in that and die too regularly. Turn around, don't drown. Dr. Knabb, into you.
Yeah, so many lives have been lost in this country already this year due to flooding, and we've got to keep people off the roads, not driving around barricades, not driving onto any water-covered road all night tonight into tomorrow morning, especially in this highest risk area that will definitely include Oklahoma City and Tulsa before too much longer. So be setting your alarm early tomorrow, because your morning commute might be hindered, and you got to stay off the roads to save your life in a very significant, life-threatening situation that is unfolding here. We've got approximately 350 miles of length of flash flood warnings and advisories all the way from southwestern Oklahoma into southeastern Kansas, even into the Joplin, Missouri area. This is becoming the widespread, significant, and life-threatening flood situation we feared. The Wichita area, especially east of town, is where we've had a lot of closed roads. That flash flood warning is in effect until midnight. The Joplin warning is still in effect. Now, one of the newest warnings includes Bartlesville, Miami, areas in northeastern Oklahoma. Hasn't really even started raining heavily in most of the area, but it's so wet there and so much training is coming that they issued that warning pretty proactively. The Stillwater and Perry areas, training is still going on. That warning till 10:15 local time. Wouldn't be surprised if that gets extended. Now here's Oklahoma City, and here is the newest flash flood warning for Clinton, Hobart, and Weatherford. You see how this line is getting closer and closer to metro Oklahoma City. So that area of flash flood warnings is going to be sagging southward into OKC and Tulsa. By about 11 p.m. local time, and maybe by midnight local time, it starts to rain in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. Stop in Tulsa. So we've got, with that much rain happening all night and with 2 inches plus per hour of rainfall expected, you can happening. And if it happens in these metro areas, it could really be significant. Don't drive onto any water-covered roadway. Don't drive around any barricades. Don't walk or bike into the water-covered area. We've got to deal with the life-threatening flooding as well as the tornado threat, severe weather threat continuing. Dr. Forbes is back. Stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us here for the Weather Channel's ongoing coverage of severe weather. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis coming to you live here from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I want to show you something interesting about the sky because when you look behind us here, look how dark and ominous it is. We've got a big complex that's really formed here to the north and west of town, right? And I put my jacket on, not necessarily because I think there's going to be imminent rain, but it got really chilly. We got a cold northwest wind that came in. So what happened was we had cold outflow from those storms. So what happens is all the rain in those storms works its way out. You get this cold, dense air working its way from the top of the storm down to the bottom of the storm. And that outflow came right through Oklahoma City and really cooled us down, darkened up the skies quite a bit here. And then if you look now to the south and east of Oklahoma City, you're going to see the ragged edges here of some outflow that came on through. But a noticeable change now in the wind direction. If you take a look, by the way, at the American flag, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but it shifted directions a little bit. It was more out of the southeast, and now it's a lot more out of the southwest. But when that came through, boy, it definitely cooled us off. But if that complex of rain that we've got back to our west is going to hit us, it may not be imminent, it may not happen in the next half hour, even an hour, but we are certain that we are going to get some heavy rain here, and we may be transitioning again from more of an individual supercell and large tornado risk to more of a tornado risk inside squall lines and a very large flood risk for us. But that doesn't mean that everyone will be that way. That may be what we're transitioning to, though, in central Oklahoma. Let's get a lay of the land, though, with our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, because Dr. Forbes, I know that you have been glued to that radar all afternoon and all evening. Which areas are you concerned about at this moment?
Well, and I agree with what you said, Mike, but I think still southern Oklahoma is fair game for some of these supercell thunderstorms, and certainly as the storms move east in Texas. And part of the reason for that is that it's still southeast flow and in the 80s across Texas. Look how there's a sharp front here. That's part of what Mike has been talking about. The storms that have been rolling up there have rain-cooled the air and actually caused what had been a larger scale front to march south into central parts of Oklahoma. There's been, to some extent, parts of the eastern Texas Panhandle have had cooling as well. But tonight we're going to have a charging eastward, or at least a pretty substantial eastward movement of this upper low, and that's going to begin to progressively drive this line of thunderstorms that showed up as green there across Texas and southern parts of Oklahoma. Right now we have brand new, a third one, tornado warnings in Texas, a number of severe thunderstorm warnings. Mostly they're training with a flood threat, occasionally in the northern parts of Oklahoma. Occasionally they may march east and become a severe threat as well. Here down in the southernmost part of Texas, Glasscock and Howard counties. I think you could see the supercell thunderstorm there with a hook echo right near the Forson area. Forson and heading over toward the Hyman area with the possibility of a tornado. It definitely has some broad rotation. Can't be sure that there's a tornado with that, but it's going to come very close to the community of Forson. Next storm up the line, close to Colorado City. That one too has this appendage on it. Howard Mitchell The flood threat and severe threat continues in parts of Kansas and northern Oklahoma. Alex?
All right, Dr. Forbes, thank you so much. A lot to watch into the day tomorrow. Keep the severe threat on the higher side. Obviously not anywhere near as high as today, but we do think there is a likelihood of severe thunderstorms across parts of Missouri, northern Arkansas, and around parts of far western Illinois. This would include the St. Louis metro area, so there's going to be a lot of real estate affected. Gulf moisture streaming north. Setup looks like that potent cold front helps to lift the moisture. So these are the factors in play tomorrow. We also have a mid-level jet that's going to enhance the supercell potential. And the supercell thunderstorms are the ones that have that capability of producing the stronger tornadoes as well as the really big hail. They're the ones that develop these really strong rotating updrafts that are able to sustain large hail. So as we look at the future radar, we start things off in the morning. We continue to watch storms moving east through the afternoon. So perhaps some individual storms across parts of Missouri or Arkansas. You can see a general line shape as well. And if you get that line of thunderstorms, you're going to be looking at that strong push of winds working through St. Louis by the evening, headed eastward overnight. Our continuing coverage continues after this. We've got Carl Parker and Alex Wallace with you up next.
Keep going. Holy smokes. Sit right here. There it is. Sit right. Don't go any further. Oh my God.
Listen to it.
Look at this. Holy smokes.
Magnum, Oklahoma. The threat far from over tonight as we could see more tornadoes like this one. A dangerous tornado outbreak underway tonight.
City skies have been threatening all day long. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis. We'll talk about the tornado risk and the flood risk straight ahead.
And here in Wichita, Kansas, we've actually decided to move inside because of the lightning threat outside. I'm Justin Michaels live for you. The biggest threat here, though, flash flooding. We'll talk about that coming up live.
Well, they're so dangerous that we are staying live around the clock. I'm Alex Wallace. Storm Specialist Carl Parker with us now. And Carl, busy afternoon, turning into a busy evening here for us. A lot of storms out there that we continue to track.
Yeah, and when we look at the parameters today, they are so high. They're really on the far end of what we see. And so the level of threat is also on the far end of what we look at in a given year. Generally, maybe 2 to 3 times a year do we see this extreme level of threat, that through central Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, and then back down across the Red River and into North Texas as well. Could be long track, violent tornadoes in this area, very large hail, damaging wind, and a flash flood threat that is going to be huge overnight tonight. Alex is going to have more on that coming up in just a few minutes here. Let's take a look at the radar picture right now. We're looking at several flash flood warnings extending from parts of Oklahoma up into southeast Kansas, severe thunderstorm warnings within that, and then tornado warnings now into parts of North Texas. We'll begin with a look at the one that is closer to the Red River. This is a tornado warning in effect for Ford and Knox counties, that going until 8:30 Central Time. And what we're looking at right now is a big surge. This is what we call the rear flank downdraft right there. And so we can see little circulations right along that interface. It looks very broad at this time. And so I think what we've got here is some threat for a tornado, but certainly a damaging wind threat as well. So let's just go ahead and outline this entire area for both of those threats, for damaging wind and a possible tornado. That's going to be making its way into Truscott here. It's going to be a damaging wind threat for you in Truscott, not a tornado threat, and that is a largely rural area where that storm is right now. As we go farther south, this is Mitchell and Scurry counties under warning until 8:30 Central Time. And in a bad spot for radar right now. We're not getting a really good look at it. I'll go back a couple of frames. And so right in there, we were seeing some rotation showing up in this area. Not the most pronounced I've ever seen. Across Route 87 there. And then to the north of that, here you see this mass of rain that is now coming through northern parts of Oklahoma, severe west of Oklahoma City, but this is not charging into Oklahoma City. This is all along a front, and the front is only very slowly moving along. It's not going to move very much at all over the next several hours. And our Mike Bettis is in Oklahoma City. Mike, and you know, certainly there's this really significant severe threat that we're looking at with these individual storms, but I think the flash flood threat is going to be huge there in Oklahoma City and points farther north and east.
You know, there are a lot of different places. So we've got a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, and that line is showing them, and that's it back there, right? It's been very slow to progress eastbound, right? So we've had a lot of movement to the storms there, so we've already seen some flooding, rainfall rates that have been 2 to 3 inches an hour. That's making its way toward Oklahoma City, but it just may not be here for a little while. It could be another hour and a half, 2 hours before it's even here. Now, we'll say this. We had a cold outflow that came through already, so I've got my jacket on. It actually got a little chilly up here after temperatures were in the upper 70s and with dew points in the low 70s. It was humid, right? But you can see where it all sits. It still sits back to our west here. So I think to your point there, Carl, we might be transitioning a little bit here. We might be transitioning away from that really extreme tornado risk now to a more of embedded storms, embedded tornadoes within the complex itself, but more of an MCS that forms and more of a higher risk now for flooding than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And you know, the that's helping to drive this is the low-level jet, the low-level winds coming into the front there. And, you know, when you look at that low-level jet, that's only going to be stepping up through the night tonight. So that's bringing that moisture that you talked about into the boundary, and that's just going to step up that flow into the boundary through the night tonight. So there's no reason to believe that the storms won't continue to be very heavy for many, many more hours yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing. We've been waiting for that boundary. It's been sitting there. It's just been moving at a snail's pace into a place like Oklahoma City. Now, it doesn't mean we haven't been hit hard, you know, in Ponca City or Stillwater or Elk City or maybe a place like, you know, Weatherford, these places. But, you know, Oklahoma City itself, which is the largest population in Oklahoma, is where you have all the people living. And this is the area that you're going to run this risk. For putting people in harm's way. Earlier, we could have been talking about when you're maximizing the instability of the daytime heating, right? You might have been looking at a potentially more significant tornado threat city, whereas now that might be backing off just a little bit and going over to heavy rain.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think we are transitioning into more of a flash flood threat going forward with embedded supercells and some severe weather. And, you know, Mike, you know, as we're getting deeper into the evening and less people are on the roads, this is one of those cases where it's probably going to demand some situational awareness, which is to say, knowing where you are relative to bodies of water. Is there a creek nearby? Are you in an area that typically does flood? Because in that case, you really have to be aware of what's going on through the night tonight.
Oh, without a doubt. You know, there are a lot of neighborhoods that might sit a little low. You know, you think about, you know, that's just small undulations in the road in your neighborhood, and those are the ones that are going to fill up with water. Does that water have an opportunity to infiltrate your property or your home, right? Where you're thinking about all day long, your mindset is, I've got to protect me and my family from a tornado. So we're going to go to our tornado shelter, or we're to go to our basement. Are those places that might now take on water potentially if we get a really heavy training thunderstorm? Think about those. Think about what you may now need to do with you and your family before all is said and done. And I would say this as well, Carl. You know, we talk about, you know, having our phones on alert or having the weather radio to alert us of a nighttime tornado risk. Take that. I mean, have the same mode of thought for a flash flood. If a flash flood warning is issued for you overnight tonight, you have to do everything you can to monitor those water levels, figure out how much rain has fallen in your neighborhood, and are you going to be at risk? Because I think that could be just as threatening as a tornado could be in some instances.
Absolutely, Mike. We really can't overstate the threat here. And as you mentioned, we're still getting some severe storms within this body of storms. And in fact, there is a new tornado warning to tell you about right now. This is Creek and Pawnee counties, now to the west of Tulsa. A warning going until 8:45. Let's take a look at the velocity data in this case here. And so we're seeing a little circulation that is showing up near Yale right now and moving off towards the east. I'm going to track that forward, and that's going to be coming out and across Route 51, so moving towards Oilton, Lawrence Creek, and Manford, and also into Westport as well. Possible tornado coming your way in those areas. Here's the broader picture for you once again. Here's what Mike was talking about. You've got these big storms off to the west. They are just not moving at all. They're really crawling along. And Alex is going to talk more about that flood threat in a moment. Severe warning now for Caddo, Canadian counties going until 8:30. Also warning just to the west, and that is Canadian and Kingfisher. So gradually we're going to watch some severe storms come in, but they're going to be coming in with that flash flood threat as well. And that may be with you there in Oklahoma City for quite some time. And there again is the tornado warning for Creek and Pawnee counties going until 8:45. Now, one thing I want to show you, we talk a lot about instability. 4 main categories: weak, moderate, strong, and extreme. And extreme is when we get into that very bright color that you're seeing there. We're looking at strong to extreme instability. There is so much fuel for these thunderstorms to keep going for quite some time yet. That's a big part of what is driving this threat, and a very energetic atmosphere on top of that. Very strong winds aloft. So again, all hazards going forward. And on our Torcon right now, what we've got is a 7 out of 10, and that is in central and western parts of Oklahoma. But Alex, again, a huge part of the problem tonight, of what we're dealing with tonight, is this flash flooding, because you've got these training storms. They're just not moving off of those tracks, so to speak.
And that is the key. They're not moving off the tracks. Until they do, that threat is going to be very, very real as we head through the rest of tonight. All right, thanks, Carl. Well, meanwhile, let's get you up to date on some of the information that we are getting in. About 20,000 customers without power tonight across Texas and Oklahoma because of the potential for dangerous tornadoes and storms. All aircraft removed from Tinker Air Force Base near Oklahoma City, and right now 8 million people remaining under tornado watches. Well, we have seen damage from
is so precise, you need no creams, no soaps, and no water.
That have been coming in here in the last hour from places like Kay County, Payne County, and also they're actually preparing for flooding that will continue over the next couple days.
Now, those reports of damage you said there, as well as some flood reports. Any injuries that you can report at this point?
At this point, we haven't had any reports of injuries. Hopefully, that will continue through the evening.
That's certainly good to hear. How about the power situation?
We have under 5,000 customers without power right now, which is good news for the state. I think the winds haven't been quite as high in some areas. And, of course, we have had those tornado reports, but a lot of those have hit in largely unpopulated areas, so that's helped a lot as well.
And we still have a ways to go as we head through the rest of the evening hours. What's the plan and how you guys are sort of ready for what may be yet to come?
Well, we have the State Emergency Operations Center activated right now, and will stay activated for as long as it's needed, possibly overnight. It kind of depends on the situation. But as of now, we're activated. Our evening shift has just started, and we're here to work with our local emergency managers across the state and any state agencies, federal agencies as needed. So far, we haven't really had any requests for assistance, but we're here to support those local jurisdictions as any requests come in.
And lastly, what can you tell the folks there in Oklahoma for the rest of the night? What advice can you give to them?
Just continue to be weather aware. I think that, with the, we've had a little bit of a lull. We have a new tornado warning now, but I don't want people to become complacent and turn off the TVs or turn off their weather radios. Be sure that you stay weather aware and keep watching it through the night.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Kelly Kane there from the Oklahoma Emergency Management Agency. Busy afternoon and certainly rest of the evening as well out there for us. We'll get to continue to watch things there across not just Oklahoma, but also down into Texas. Let's time things out here for you and get a little bit more specific here when it comes to what these cities may be dealing with here as we head on through the rest of tonight. Wichita heading into Kansas. That's another area that'll be watching these storms as we head through tonight. Storm chances continue here for you until we get into the morning hours. And finally, late morning, we should see things quieting down there and a much quieter second part of the day there heading into your Tuesday. But again, there will be more rain coming on in. Adding up here for us, we're going to be looking for another inch or so in and around Wichita. And, of course, there could be some higher totals, locally higher amounts. These storms tend to train over some of those same areas. But this is all within a zone which is very, very likely to deal with severe thunderstorm activity. In fact, that extreme zone is in place for eastern portions of the panhandle of Texas into Oklahoma. And that extreme zone does not happen very often. I mean, we're only talking about maybe 1 or 2 times per year that you get into that particular zone. So dangerous storms to track here for us, including the threat for tornadoes, damaging wind, large hail, and we always talk about that flood threat as well. So as we time this out, we put the radar into future mode. We'll start you off 9 o'clock Central, line of storms, and within that, there'll be embedded storms rotating, and that's going to be one of the big risks as well. That'll all continue to work on off towards the north and east, but you notice there's not a huge push eastbound. They kind of tend to roll over the same locations here, and that's what we call training, and that's why that flood threat is going to be real until we get into Tuesday morning, and we finally see these storms press on off towards towards the east.
You know, in so many parts of the country, you expect that the threat is going to come down as you get deeper into the evening, and that's really not going to be the case here. Oftentimes in the plains, things keep going all night long, and so we've got an ongoing threat, and let's take a look at where the worst of it is right now. And a couple of tornado warnings to tell you about. One of those is now west of Tulsa. That's a tornado warning in effect for Creek and Pawnee counties going until 8:45. Looking at a little appendage now near Route 51 and making its way towards Manford. So tracking that forward, that'll be getting into Manford at 8:30, into Westport at 8:35, and Lotsie at 8:42. Also want to take you farther off to the west, and big thunderstorms now near Oklahoma City. Severe thunderstorm warnings and a flash flood threat that is going to loom large through the rest of the night tonight. Much more coming up.
Strong storms across the plains right now, including storms that have some tornadoes in them, large hail, frequent lightning, and we now know that flash flooding becomes a very big risk as we go through the remainder of the evening. Thanks for being with us here for our continuing coverage on the Weather Channel. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis, and we are live in Oklahoma City right now. I'll kind of show you what's happening behind us here. As you can see some delineation here and the cold outflow that's come on through, and then a little bit drier air off in the distance there where you see a little bit brighter colors, right? But all the action has been west and north of Oklahoma City throughout the day today, and heavy rain has fallen for us. So rainfall rates have been pretty intense today. 2 inches an hour, 3 inches an hour, and before all is said and done, we could be looking at half a foot of rain in some locations. So I want to show you back to our west here. Look how dark the skies are here as you look due west. It is midnight black out there, right? So that's where all the really intense storms are right now, including severe thunderstorm warnings as close as El Reno and flash flood warnings there as well. That's just a few miles west on I-40, okay? So please take the threat seriously tonight as we now have had the sun set. And it's going to get a lot more dangerous to be on the roadways tonight, including anyone that may need to work overnight tonight. What I'd encourage you to do is potentially, call the boss and say, listen, we got a pretty significant storm threat tonight. Might I come in a little bit later once the threat passes, or maybe don't even come in tonight, if that's even an option for you here. But we may be transitioning now to more of a flood threat than a tornado threat, at least in central Oklahoma. There will be some spots maybe farther south of here. We're still going to have a fairly significant tornado threat. So be aware through the night tonight. Have a way to be alerted, whether it be on your phone alerts or whether it be on a weather radio, or maybe both, just to have the redundancy there so that you're woken up in the middle of the night and you can take immediate action to protect you and your family. Now, it seems like all day long we've had storms on I-35 between Oklahoma City and Wichita, Kansas. It has just been raining bucketfuls for us. Justin Michaels is up in Wichita for us. Justin, a pretty intense day of storms, I would say, northern Oklahoma and southern Kansas. What's the day been like for you today there?
Well, I'll tell you what, the number one thing, aside from the torrential rains that have been falling, is the very cold temperatures. Right now, it's about 50 degrees. It's been here for hours and hours and hours. When we're talking about the winds we've had, coupled with just constant rain, it is, I would almost describe as kind of frigid out here. It is not a lovely day in Wichita. Certainly not a Chamber of Commerce day, but the most dangerous thing about today is the potential for flash flooding. There is the threat of maybe inch diameter hail, and that can certainly damage your car, damage your house. It's a big problem, but the flash flooding is the biggest problem right now. We're in a flash flood warning for about another 4.5 hours. So as people are going out tonight, they should know that. And there is a great danger when driving in a flash flood warning. Cody Sharvett is with Sedgwick County Emergency Management, and he talked to us about the dangers of driving. Listen.
It doesn't take a tornado to be dangerous because flooding is the #1 killer of all severe weather events, as you know. People don't respect the power of Mother Nature. They drive around those barricades. They think, oh gosh, I can get through it. It's only that deep. Well, right here where you can see it, it may be only that deep, but you get farther down the road, closer to the source of that flooding, you have no idea how deep that water is. You have no idea if the roadway is still even there.
Another danger when dealing with flash flooding and floodwaters across roadways and also sidewalks is walking through it. As we send it back to Alex Wilson. Is it Alex Wilson or Alex Wallace right now? One of the Alexes is going to be coming up here. As we said, Alex Wallace. Hey, Alex. One of the dangers that I didn't even think of in speaking with some of these emergency managers is the threat of walking. You're walking across a roadway, right? Your car's stopped. You're walking. You don't know if the manhole covers on that road might have popped up as the water was surging, and all of a sudden you're walking and you fall right through them. That is an absolute danger, and people have to be rescued by that kind of threat regularly. I didn't even think about that, Alex. It certainly is just one more threat when it comes to flash flooding.
Yeah, you said it. Just another threat and another reason why folks need to certainly be aware of the situation surrounding them as we head through the rest of this evening. All right, thanks so much, Justin. We'll be checking back with you as we head on through the rest of tonight. Meanwhile, as we take a look at that water vapor imagery, and boy, I tell you, it is a moist time. A lot of thunderstorms that are blowing up here for us across the central southern plains. That's where you've got all the thunderstorm activity here with a ton of moisture to work with here with these storms, and they're dumping quite a bit of rain here at this time. And that's why we have a ton of flash flood warnings lined up from Oklahoma up into Kansas right now. Right now, as you get just west of Oklahoma City, you've got Blaine, Caddo, as well as Canadian counties here until 10:30. Flash flood warning is in effect there. You still see some very heavy rain moving right on through that general area. You slide just on off towards the north, right along that 35 corridor to include Garfield, Logan, and Noble counties until 10:15. That's just south of Ponca City. You're dealing with that flash flood warning that's in place there for you. Perry, in fact, you've been dealing with water rushing over Highway 64. Reports coming in there. And then, as I mentioned, up into Kansas, a number of reports coming in around the Independence area. Law enforcement now reporting multiple rescues from stranded vehicles. So again, a very dangerous night to be trying to get out and about. Ponding on the roads, water on the roads. You do not want to be trying to go through that. It's just too dangerous to be doing so at this time. 3-hour rainfall totals here for us estimated by the radar. And you can see some of these areas in yellow showing up. That corresponds to about 3 to 5 inches of rain in that span. And we still have flood watches, flash flood watches, and flood watches that are in place. Parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and into Missouri. That includes Kansas City, back down towards Springfield from tonight and into tomorrow morning. Essentially going to be very likely to deal with flash flooding in this zone. We've already seen reports of that taking shape here parts of Oklahoma and into Kansas. Very busy night ahead. We've got more to track with the severe weather threat.
This program brought to you by Cool Sculpting. Learn more on coolsculpting.com.
tornado in Mangum, Texas, destroying homes as well as businesses. You can clearly see that there in the background there for you, rain hitting the lens, but nonetheless, you clearly see it spinning and turning and working its way from basically left to right there on your screen. The camera pans around a bit to show you what's going on there with that tornado. But yeah, this is an area here that ended up being littered with some debris, thanks to some of the damage that was left behind by that storm. This looks like maybe some sort of farmland area, and you see the roof of that particular structure seems to be gone, ripped away, and then other debris littered across the farmland region there. So again, in Mangum, dealing with that tornado damage there. That's in the state of Oklahoma. Well, hi there, and welcome on back to our special coverage of the dangerous tornado outbreak. I'm meteorologist Alex Wallace. Now, one of the biggest severe weather days so far this year, continuing to play out tonight across portions of the plains. And we want to get right on over to our storm specialist, Carl Parker. He's watching what's happening there on the radar. And a lot of storms out there, Carl. And it's one of those situations a lot of people think, okay, nighttime's coming. We're going to be safe. Things are going to calm down. But not the case here tonight.
Yeah, you know, sun is setting, and that's exactly right. A lot of times that means a lessening of the severe threat. But in this case, we're not going to be looking at that. And that means much more dangerous weather. Tornadoes, of course, are far more deadly at night. And we're going to be looking at an ongoing tornado threat in addition to large hail, damaging wind, and flash flooding. That's a really big part of it, especially up into parts of Oklahoma and also into southeast Kansas. Let's begin with a look at what's happening in Texas right now. I've got a warning outside of Wichita Falls. Big swirl in the storm here with a damaging wind threat right in there. That's something we call the rear flank downdraft. And so some very strong wind now south of Route 70 and traveling along to the east there. Damaging wind threat coming towards Grayback before very long. Then to the south of that, we're looking at a tornado warning for Mitchell County going until 9 o'clock. See the little hook showing up. That is just south of Interstate 20 there. Very strong rotation on this storm. That area where you're seeing the red and the green there, that is exceptionally strong rotation now showing up here. In fact, I'm going to circle this. Let's look and see if there's any evidence of debris at this time. Not really seeing anything conclusive, but exceptionally strong rotation there. So there very well could be a tornado and possibly a large violent tornado that is going to be passing to the south of Colorado City, moving towards Bowman School at 8:57, Lorain at 8:58, and Champion at 9:04. That is definitely a very strong rotation that is showing up in that storm. So heads up on that. Please be aware it could be a tornado coming your way. Then to the south of that, severe warning now near Big Spring, large hail threat, big hail core coming into areas just south of Big Spring. Then up into Oklahoma, as I mentioned, you've got this area of heavy rain that is slowly now sagging to the east, and storms now beginning to get into the Oklahoma City metro area. Let's get out to Mike Bettis. And Mike, slowly but surely, all that weather is coming in, and you've got just about every hazard imaginable as these storms come in, but certainly flash flooding, damaging winds at the top of the list there.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that we finally now starting to see some eastward progression of that storm line, and portions now of Oklahoma County are under a severe thunderstorm warning until 9:15 local time. We'll be watching for 60-plus mile-per-hour winds and the possibility here of 1-inch diameter hail, about quarter-size hail that come with these storms. Not to mention we're going to see some lightning with them as well. So just be aware of all those issues. Carl, you mentioned about the flooding, right? You know, look at the delineation, by the way, of the storm line there. Isn't that impressive? You can see a little bit of rain there. And the lights in the ballpark here where the Oklahoma City Dodgers play their minor league team. It's a really quiet night, though, as far as people go. There have not been a lot of people. I think everyone was really mindful of how much weather and violent weather potentially was coming in today. And hopefully everyone's just at home, you know, watching some TV tonight and knowing what to do in the case of emergency, weather emergency in your area. Yes, we now think that flooding may take over as one of the big risks that we see here in Oklahoma. Yes, there have been a few tornado warnings still this evening, but you look back into town, by the way, and just look how dark the skies are here. That's really where the meat of the storms are right now, just to our west, but now moving in. So I think once that gets in here, expect to see rainfall rates here that could be 2-3 inches per hour. And if you get that over a course of 2 to 3 hours. Now you're talking maybe 6 inches or more of rain that comes in here. So again, when that happens, and it happens at night, Carl, it becomes incredibly dangerous. And we would really encourage everyone, if you're home now and that's a safe place for you to be, to stay there. Getting in your car and getting on the road in those conditions could be life-threatening for you tonight.
And Mike, at least with that cool air coming in, you've got less of a tornado threat there in Oklahoma City right now.
Yeah, I think maybe we've lost some of that daytime heating that we had today, where temperatures were close to 80 degrees here in Oklahoma City. We're going to get some buoyancy to the air. Not now. We've had, actually, I think, 2 outflows that have come through and cooled us down, so maybe some stability there that doesn't lessen the flood risk. We're back after this. to take you live to Electra, Texas, and the thunderstorms that are hitting us here. A ton of lightning with so many of our storms today, and so just be mindful of that too, folks, in addition to all the other threats that we're following for you today, from tornadoes to flash flooding to hail to high winds. to lightning, okay? It's all on the table for us still for the remainder of the evening. Although the tornado threat may be coming down somewhat, it's still going to be there potentially after you go to bed tonight. Finally starting to rain now in Oklahoma City. We're getting just the front edge of a complex rolling in from the west right now. And you can see behind me here, it has gotten now pitch black. You can see the rain coming down on the lights there at the stadium. But for the remainder till 9:15, and so we've got about at least another 40 minutes or so for a severe thunderstorm warning for us now in portions of northern Oklahoma County. Storm moving now off to the east at about 30 miles an hour or so, and that will be accompanied by some really intense rainfall rates. Carl Parker, our storm specialist, has been tracking these storms very closely. We do have a couple of tornado warnings in this whole complex of line storms here, but for a place like Oklahoma City, Carl, severe thunderstorm warning, and I have this feeling that once that line comes through, we're going to stabilize the air even more as far as tornadoes go. But I think we are just going to continue to pump out heavy rain for several hours tonight.
Yeah, that really is the huge worry because all these storms are firing on a front, Mike, and that front is just not moving very much at all. So you're going to have the flash flood threat. You've got the lightning, as you mentioned, some damaging wind. Interesting, though, you were talking about the gust front that came through earlier, and when you get that low-level cool air coming through, well, that cuts off that surface inflow that makes tornadoes possible. So that's at least one thing that we can take off the table there in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I'm happy to report that. That would be great. I think the atmosphere might be cooperating for us, at least in that regard. We've seen some tornadoes touch down, especially in western Oklahoma. We showed you some of the video. But having that little cold pool of air spill out of that whole MCS curl, I think may have been the saving grace for us in Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. And, as you mentioned, because this front is not moving very much at all, we're going to continue to get heavy rain overnight. And, Mike, I was looking at the low-level jet, the low-level winds, and you were talking earlier about how there's so much moisture in the atmosphere, and that low-level jet is delivering moisture into these storms. That is actually going to be stepping up overnight tonight. So I don't really see any sort of cessation to the storms, to the intensity of the storms. There's a lot of instability, all kinds of moisture being driven in and being driven in more rapidly going into the evening and overnight hours.
That's probably some tough news for some folks here in Oklahoma City to swallow, unfortunately. I want to take a quick look. I've been watching this American flag. I'm not sure you'll be able to see it on camera at all, but they've got an American flag here. And the winds look like they're still got a bit of a southeasterly component to them, Carl. So we're still tapping into a solid feed of moisture from the Gulf of Mexico still, I believe. And so, when you talk about that supply coming in, when will it end? You go hour after hour after hour until you finally get a wind shift, at least a surface wind shift here, and the front comes through before you finally reduce the risk. But until then, all bets are off the table at this point.
Yeah, Mike, as we look at the high-resolution modeling, what it's showing us is that this area of storms continues for the next several hours, maybe until 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And then perhaps we get a little bit of a break there in Oklahoma City beyond that point. And then another big complex of storms develops overnight and probably moves in the pre-dawn hours. So another big round of heavy rain is on the way. So, Mike, it might be one of those things where folks wake up tomorrow morning with a whole slew of flash flood warnings across the metro there and then up 44 and on into Tulsa.
I mean, it literally could be the proverbial 1-2 punch here, because if you get a couple of inches of rain, you get a bit of a break. You've already now saturated all the soil, right? So now the next round that comes in that may produce just as much rain, that all sits on top now and it runs off. And that's where you really then start to run into the issues of not only creek and stream flooding, but now you're certainly going to amp up the flash flood risk, Carl. So good point there, especially if people tomorrow morning are anticipating getting up, putting kids on the bus, or getting in your car and making your just regular morning commute. That may be a little tougher for you tomorrow than you think.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think we've been talking about this for a while now. I think the flash flood threat is really going to be one of the biggest threats that we're looking at there in Oklahoma. We've got embedded thunderstorms within this line. A lot of things are still in place. There's still going to be a damaging wind threat. There's going to be plenty of lightning, some hail as well, some tornadoes for cells that are out along the leading edge of the cooler air that these storms have been putting out. But I think that heavy rain and flash flood threat is just going to be enormous through the night tonight, Mike. We've already had just so much rain across these areas. I'm looking at the 6-hour accumulations here, and widespread areas getting 3 to 5 inches of rain. And, we might see as much as that going forward across a lot of these spots, Mike.
We would just urge everyone, don't minimize the flash flood risk for you here, folks. Think about the El Reno tornado in 2013 that happened just west of here, right? Infamous tornado. In fact, America's largest tornado, 2.5 miles wide, but more people died in flash flooding in that storm than the actual tornado.
Good evening, and thank you for staying with us live here on the Weather Channel as we work very hard to keep you safe through a tornado outbreak and a severe weather outbreak all across the southern plains and the plains of our United States. I'm Justin Michaels, live for you in Wichita, Kansas, where the big threats here are not necessarily tornadoes. They're, in some cases, even more dangerous. Flash flooding. Flash flooding is, of course, the #1 way people die in severe weather. We also have the threat for hail, the threat for damaging winds, the threat for rain, the threat for all sorts of different things, thunder and lightning. In fact, we had to step inside for one of our live shots because it was lightning so dramatically outside. For safety's sake, we moved inside. So the threats are real, folks, and people are having to live through this all for the rest of this night. Now, we caught up with Cody Sharvett with Sedgwick County Emergency Management, the county where Wichita, Kansas is. And we were talking about the dangers of flash flooding, the dangers of severe weather, and he gave some really good advice on one surefire way to stay safe. Listen.
Number one, don't go out and travel around if you don't have to on a night like this. And of course, if you do come across water-covered roadway, we've been preaching it for years. You have at the Weather Channel, we have in the local EM, local media. Everybody says it, but nobody seems to listen. So I'll say it one more time. Turn around, don't drown. There's just no risk worth putting your life in jeopardy like that. You find that dry way around and get to where you're going, even if it takes a little bit more time.
Or better yet, just stay in.
Better yet, just stay in. If you don't have to be out, stay at home.
Yeah, that really is probably the best thing you can do on a night like this. And I have to tell you, folks, I've been standing outside for several minutes of every single hour for the last several hours, and it's not nice out. The best thing you can do is stay inside tonight. Good night in with the family because the dangers are real. Flash flooding is the largest, but also remember, throughout the course of the evening, Alex, as we go back into Alex Wallace at TWCHQ, Alex, that hail threat is also here. And I'll tell you what, Alex, we're talking about inch diameter hail. That can do a lot of damage and cause a lot of harm to people. So the threats are real. Best thing to do, stay indoors.
Absolutely, Justin. You said just a number of threats when it comes to the storms here for this evening. And we got some new video coming in. This is out of the Mangum area there in Oklahoma. That's about a 3-hour drive south and west out of Oklahoma City. And you clearly see, plain as day, the tornado there spinning and churning here in Mangum. It almost looked like stovepipe shape there for you, right in the middle of the screen, violently rotating there. And again, this is one of the scenes that we saw there. A number of warnings. We had some damage being reported there in the Mangum area as well. So these storms absolutely meant business, and they continue to do so here. Our calls we head on through this evening. More of these storms firing up. Warnings continue to fire up. Severe threat, damaging wind, hail, flood threat, tornado risk still in play.
It's going to be a rough night, and we have an update from the Storm Prediction Center, and they brought down the risk a little bit, but it was so high to begin with, it was so extreme to begin with, that it's still very, very high, even being lower than what it was through a lot of the day today. So this is the update from the Storm Prediction Center, and the extreme threat, the area of the extreme threat, has been reduced considerably to now include areas of southwest Oklahoma as well as into North Texas, so near Wichita Falls, and then the very likely area for severe weather, including areas west of Abilene and then up in Oklahoma City. So by no means does this mean that we're seeing not that much of a threat. It's still a really serious threat for all hazards. We're talking about tornadoes, damaging wind, very large hail, heavy rain, flash flooding. That's going to be huge going through the night tonight. Let's talk a little bit about some of the warnings that we're looking at right now. We've got a big string of warnings extending from Kansas all the way down into Texas. A tornado warning to tell you about right along I-20, and this one does include Sweetwater. This is Fisher and Nolan counties. As we look at this storm here, there are actually a couple of little notches that I'm watching. One of those is right there and right along I-20, and that is generally headed towards Sweetwater. So tracking that forward, that's coming up into Sweetwater, probably about 9:19 or so. Then there's another one behind that. So we've actually got a couple of different areas that we're watching, and circulation showing up now just east of Colorado City in this area. We're looking pretty far up in this case because this area is a long way from the radar, and the farther away you get from the radar because of the curvature of the Earth, the beam is going out straight and the Earth is curving away from the beam, so you're looking higher and higher up in the storm. So what we're seeing is at least a very strong mid-level circulation here, but certainly a very dangerous storm that has had a history of producing some tornadoes. Then off to the north, this is up into Ford and Hardman and Will Barger counties. Warning going until 9 o'clock. We've got a damaging wind threat, and look at the lightning now coming into 83, 183 and 283. Tremendous electrical storm now knocking on the door there in Vernon and not very far away from Frederick. Then we get up into Oklahoma, and you see this mass of rain. We are now at least beginning to see a little bit of thinning in terms of the intensity west of Oklahoma City, but it's still a really serious threat. Also an ongoing severe thunderstorm warning now for Logan and Oklahoma counties until 9:15. Damaging wind coming in to areas near Luther right now. Let's track that forward. Now moving east about 35, 40 miles per hour. And so looking at some possible very strong wind there. Poole, Luther, Fallis, and Wellston and Kearney counties. But at least, Alex, not as much of a tornado threat in Oklahoma City because we had a little gust of cool air coming already.
That's the one sort of semi-bright spot, but still a lot of threats to track.
Absolutely.
All right, well, our severe storm coverage continues all night long here on the Weather Channel. The latest on the dangerous tornado threat.
Sit right here. There it is. Sit right. Don't go any further. Oh my God. Do it.
Multiple destructive tornadoes across parts of the plains over the last few hours, including this one in Mangum, Oklahoma. The threat far from over tonight, as we could see more tornadoes like this one. It's a dangerous tornado outbreak underway tonight.
And certainly watching for those storms to race right through Oklahoma City and central Oklahoma, producing the possibility of tornadoes, but also the possibility of significant life-threatening flash flooding. I'm meteorologist Mike Bittis live in Oklahoma City. A report for you is straight ahead.
Also coming up from Wichita, Kansas, the threat here is not necessarily tornadoes. It's more flash flooding, potentially dangerous hail, damaging winds, you name it. We have the other types of severe weather coming up from Wichita, Kansas. I'm Justin Michaels.
Well, the weather's so dangerous that we are staying live around the clock. I'm meteorologist Alex Wallace. We got our storm specialist Carl Parker with us in the lab here, and I want to get right to it. Turn it over to Carl, and watching the radar still lit up out there with a number of storms dumping the rain, a lot of lightning, and again, all the threats continue to remain in play.
Yeah, you know, it's not really letting up that much. There's so much instability and so much energy in the atmosphere, a lot of dynamism, a lot of wind, and so this threat's going to continue on for quite some time going into the evening hours, and then the flash flood threat is going to be huge in parts of Oklahoma and also into Kansas. There you see the severe thunderstorm concern. Very likely that we will see severe thunderstorms in Oklahoma as well as into North Texas, an extreme threat there on either side of the Red River. And here is a look at the current radar picture. Storms lining up now from western parts of Missouri down across Oklahoma and down into central Texas. Couple of tornado warnings to tell you about here. This is a confirmed tornado spotted by weather spotters, Fisher and Nolan counties, under warning until 9:30. Look at the rotation showing up here on the radar. Very strong rotation right now, and that is now just north of 20 and generally moving towards Sweetwater. So taking that forward, that's going to move into Roscoe at 9:13, Avenger Field 9:19, Sweetwater at 9:25, and Palava at 9:33. So getting very close to Sweetwater. Let's do one more thing. Let's see if there's any debris showing up. Probably not, because we're shooting up pretty high in this case, but certainly that is strong rotation. And again, spotters have actually confirmed a tornado with this storm as it's moving along Interstate 20 there. Then to the north of that, another tornado warning for Fisher County. That going until 9:30. I'm going to jump back to that very quickly, and we'll take a look at what's going on with that storm. And we're seeing certainly an area of strong winds here and some potential rotation near Rotan. So I'm just going to take that forward, and that's going to be moving out to the northeast, coming up into Rotan or just north, about 9:08 or so. So damaging wind threat and a tornado threat as well with that storm as it continues to move along to the north. Then well to the north, looking at it, what appears to be less of a strong storm in terms of a damaging wind threat right now, but you've certainly got a terrific amount of lightning. Look at that, 1,000 strikes now coming into that 183 and 283 corridor, knocking on the door there in Frederick, and now moving into Vernon as we speak. That's going to be a big part of the threat going through the night tonight. And then up into Oklahoma, this is a loop over the last 3 hours, and you can see how little these storms have moved. The individual cells have been tracking off to the northeast, but that axis of heaviest rain has only very slowly been sagging off to the southeast, and that means an ongoing flash flood threat. We want to go out now to Mike Bettis. He's been in Oklahoma City tracking these storms for us. And Mike, we've had a severe warning there, some gusty winds coming through, but certainly one of our biggest concerns overnight tonight is going to be that ongoing rain. Maybe a little bit of a break here over the next few hours, a little bit less in the way of heavy, consistent rain, but then another big batch most likely developing overnight tonight.
Well, and to your point, Carl, you know, everything has been moving so slowly today, right? And that's generally the key when you talk about these bigger flood events, right, is the slow movement of everything. We don't have this big, hard-charging cold front, per se, that's sweeping on through, and so it storms for half an hour at most, and then everything's gone. This could be an ongoing duration event thing. This could go on for hours and hours and hours. Look behind here, again, very, very dark skies. Had a lot of lightning lighting up the skies just to our northwest here of Oklahoma City. We do have those severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. But even knowing that, you know, I look at the lightning, Carl, and to me that still tells me that we've got a decent amount of updraft motion in these storms. So we're getting, you know, some ice cores higher up in the storms, and so they're still sustaining themselves. It's not like these storms are significantly weaker. Maybe they're not necessarily rotating as much as they once were, but they're still capable of producing some hail, some high winds, and of course torrential downpours.
Yeah, you know, Mike, that's really interesting because you got that area of cool air that came out from the leading edge of these storms here. And what that does is it cuts off that surface inflow of very warm and very humid air. And so that really decreases the possibility of a tornado. But you've still got warm and humid air that's being driven up into the storm aloft in the low to mid levels of the storm. And so, as you mentioned, that's enough to keep these updrafts going. And in fact, that's going to be the case really through the night tonight. You've got the boundary in place. You've got the warm and humid air being driven into the boundary, being lifted up along the boundary. That whole mechanism is not really going to change that much over many, many hours. And that's why we're so concerned about getting so much more in the way of heavy rain there, especially all along that 44 corridor.
Carl, what are your thoughts, by the way, on that front itself? Do you see that picking up any forward speed here? Would you see more of a squall line developing overnight tonight, maybe some bow echoes with some brief tornado spin-ups in that, or do you think we're going to continue with this relatively slow motion through the night tonight?
Well, you know, you've had these outflow boundaries sort of kick out here, and so, you know, and that becomes the sort of de facto front. I mean, you know, north of that, you've got elevated storms, and that's precisely what we're going to be dealing with through the rest of the night tonight. But, you know, looking at the model forecast, what we see is that the boundary doesn't really make that much progress. It kind of just sits right across Oklahoma City, and in fact may actually begin to turn tail and lift back to the north. And then we start to see the cold front coming through, and as that happens, that's when this next big mass of rain comes in, and that's going to be, you know, 4 to 5 to 6 o'clock in the morning, in that range. And so we're talking about just very heavy rain once again affecting a lot of these areas. And so, Mike, you know, as we mentioned earlier, you know, what we were talking about is the possibility that people wake up to many more flash flood warnings across much of the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, if that's what we transition to overnight tonight, Carl, it'd be a completely different thing from what you went to bed to what you woke up out of bed to, right? That means in the morning you're thinking, okay, the storm system's going to be gone, it's going to be past, and I'm just going to continue with my normal daily routine. We'd urge you to really pay attention to the weather tomorrow. Maybe get up a few minutes earlier than you normally would tomorrow morning. Think about turning on the TV, checking out the local weather, what has happened in your area, and then maybe, again, just looking at your neighborhood. Get a lay of the land here. Is it going to be safe for me to drive to work or drive my kids to school? Are they even going to have school tomorrow? A lot of different neighborhoods could be threatened by flash flooding, Carl. We know that a lot of roadways could go underwater as well. And anyone that lives near a creek or stream needs to pay extra close attention to how much rain they get tonight.
Yeah, you know, Mike, that's a really, really important point because we really focus on driving into water because that happens so much and so many people put themselves in harm's way. But then there's also this other aspect of what we call situational awareness and knowing what it's like around the area that you live in. Are you near, for example, a creek that tends to rise rapidly? Are you near a low-lying area? Because, you know, we expect that there are going to be, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 inches of rain coming down in total with this system, maybe even more in some spots. And so there are going to be rapid rises on those creeks overnight. And, you know, it might be a situation where just staying put is not good enough. You might actually have to take action at some point beyond just staying put.
Yeah. And you think about some of those totals, Carl. If you're talking, you know, roughly a half a foot of rain, right? And that happens just overnight. That's a month and a half worth of rain for some people that they get over the course of just a few hours. The ultimate result of that is likely to be flooding. And so it's one of those things where you have to change your tone of your mode of thought, so to speak, a little bit here. Where throughout the day, I think a lot of people were keenly aware of a tornado risk, right? But now you might have to think, okay, let's dial that back a little bit. Let's start now thinking about what's going to happen if there's a flash flood in my neighborhood. What happens if my home could be threatened? What happens if my route that I normally take to the coffee shop or I normally take to work isn't going to be there? That's how we need to think now, and think about the danger that you could be in when you get in your car and you drive into high water.
Yeah, absolutely, because, the basic mechanism is really not going to change that much. You've got this thing called the low-level jet, which is basically a conveyor belt for deep tropical moisture to come out of the Gulf of Mexico and make its way up into Oklahoma. And once it hits that warm front, it hits that boundary and rises along that boundary, just keeps producing storms and keeps producing storms. That basic mechanism is not going to change very much at all until finally we get the cold front to come through, and that's going to be the very last part of it, but that too is also going to be lifting that moisture. So, the lift, the amount of moisture in place, all of that serving to give us many, many more hours of terrifically heavy rain. I would be really on my toes across parts of Oklahoma tonight. I think there's a lot to be worried about in terms of flash flooding in particular.
Yeah, the meteorology behind it all is truly fascinating. As meteorologists here at the Weather Channel, we could geek out about it all night long. But, the science behind it, folks, should tell you the threats that are here. And as Carl's mentioned, in some sense, Carl, to me it feels like, that backstop behind a catcher, that's the boundary. And as many wild pitches as you throw, it's just going to hit that backstop, right? And that's the storms. Those are the storms that fire at the backstop, right? And if that isn't moving, then that's where you're going to end up having all the flooding tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what's going to be happening. That boundary just changes very, very little. Probably sags to the south a little bit, but then begins to tail, lifts back to the north. So many of the same areas are going to be targeted hour after hour. We want to tell you about a new tornado warning right now into parts of Oklahoma. So that's going to be an ongoing threat, especially right along the leading edge of some of these storms. And in fact, let's zoom down. I'm going to get a better look at what's going on with this storm here. There are actually a couple of different tornado warnings, and one of those is for Rogers and Tulsa and Wagoner counties. That is going until 9:45. This is really close to the radar. And so we've got a little bit of a shear line right there. I'm going to go back just a couple of frames to get another look at that. I think we had a little more rotation right there, right in there, right around 169. And then as we go forward here, it looks like it's a little bit looser. It's a little bit more nebulous. Nonetheless, let's just go ahead and track that out and show you where that's going to be going. That'll be coming towards Catoosa, as well as Claremore, Bushy Head, and also into Chelsea. Then off to the west of that, looking at another tornado warning for Creek, Osage, and Tulsa counties going until 9:30. And in this case, again, seeing a little bit more rotation right as that warning was first issued. So these are sort of short fuse warnings, at least right now. And that's going to be moving off and generally towards Tulsa. So, it's not at all uncommon to see these things tighten up for a time and then begin to loosen up and then tighten up once again. So you've generally got it coming towards Tulsa. Heads up there in Tulsa, possible rotating storm coming your way. Latest scan here is not as impressive. So let's hope that that is a trend that continues there in Tulsa. But certainly you've got a threat here for tornadoes and as well as damaging wind and very, very heavy rain and a lot of lightning too. In fact, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and we'll get a look at the lightning with some of these storms. There you go. I can actually redraw this here. That is just a crazy amount of lightning that is now coming in with these storms. 2,056 strikes in the last 15 minutes, Alex. That is an incredible electrical storm. So basically every hazard that is possible from severe local storms occurring tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that is nuts.
Yeah.
2,000.
Yeah.
Wow, unbelievable. All right, thanks, Carl. Well, we have seen certainly some damage from some of the storms across Oklahoma. Kelly Kane with the Oklahoma Emergency Management Agency joins us on the phone. Kelly, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
So give us an update. How's the state faring at this hour with these storms?
Well, right now we're getting more and more reports of flooding coming in across the state, anywhere from southwest Oklahoma all the way up to northeast Oklahoma. And as you guys have been talking about, that's just going to keep getting worse throughout the night. The rain is expected to continue. And as far as flooding goes, heavy rainfall that occurs up in Kansas also has an impact on us with our rivers and streams. So it's something that we're really keeping an eye on. We're hearing of water rescues going on in some areas, and we're watching that very closely.
And so, Kelly, would you say that at least up to this point, that has been sort of the major issue, the flooding, as opposed to some of the other issues that you can deal with storms?
Oh, absolutely. I think we definitely have had damage from tornadoes and other severe weather through the day, but I think that moving forward, the flood damage is going to be a big issue. But of course, our tornado risk is definitely not zero right now and going through the night.
And I know we currently have a tornado warning there in the Tulsa metro. Are you getting any word of any damage in that area?
No, we haven't gotten any reports yet, but we'll be in contact with the emergency managers up in that area.
And your piece of advice as we head through the rest of the night there for the folks there in Oklahoma?
We just continue to tell people and ask people to be weather aware, make sure they have multiple forms of warnings that they're receiving, and that they can receive warnings overnight even after they go to bed, because some of these storms are just going to keep going through the night.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, Kelly Kane, thank you so much there from the Oklahoma Emergency Management Agency. We certainly appreciate you updating us on the situation there. Still tracking these storms rolling their way across parts of the southern plains into Texas. The night is still young. These storms will continue to dump quite a bit of rain. You see the ponding on the roads there in Vernon, Texas. We'll see more of that as the night progresses.
Welcome back to our coverage of severe weather. A very dangerous night across the plains, all hazards, including tornadoes. And there are a couple of tornado warnings to tell you about right now on either side of Tulsa and along that 44 corridor. Here's the first one from Tulsa and on eastward. Rogers, Tulsa, Wagoner counties under warning until 9:45. I'm not seeing quite as much evidence of rotation right now. I'm going to go back several frames here, and right in there in particular, see that little bit of a pinpoint. Could very well have been a tornado at that time, but then it loosened up a good bit after that. And right now, getting close to the radar, that's sort of the irony, is that when you get real close to the radar, sometimes it gets a little bit noisy. So I'd say still some threat for a tornado. It's not real obvious at this time, but let's just go ahead and track that area of the Bears Cage out as we move northward, and that's going to be coming up into Claremore, Harmony Star, and also into Adair as well. And then farther west, another tornado warning here for Creek, Osage, and Tulsa counties going until 9:30. Here, too, there was a little bit of a tightening that looked a lot more impressive right as the warning was issued, right in there and right in there in particular. And right now, it's just not showing up the same way, not seeing the same level of intensity there. It looks a lot more diffuse, but something to keep our eyes on. And again, we're looking at these little notches right in there. That's where the tornadoes like to sit. That is now west of Tulsa, and it's certainly not uncommon for storms to get a little bit looser and then not as well organized and then tighten up once again. So just heads up there in Tulsa, you've got a rotating storm that is now off to your southwest, at least for a time. We had a tighter circulation associated with it, but it is generally headed towards Tulsa. So you want to keep a really close eye on this one as it continues to move off to the north. And then another thing is that all of this weather has been right along the leading edge of a front that's sagging southward. Some of the storms actually behind some of the cooler air that they've been putting out. But these storms that are developing south of Tulsa are very much within the warm and humid air. They're solidly in the area of greatest instability, and some of them are starting to show a little bit of an appendage on the southwest side. So they're showing signs of rotation. Not surprising at all. There's a lot of wind shear in the atmosphere, and so we're going to need to really keep a close eye on those cells as they continue to move up into northeastern parts of Oklahoma. And just a crazy amount of lightning, still seeing 1,649 strikes with that big cluster up and down 44, just a little northwest. Another couple of tornado warnings to tell you about. One of those near Sweetwater. That storm is lifting up and well north of Sweetwater. Still seeing some rotation right in there. I'm going to get a sense of the vector here, which actually is more towards the northeast than east-northeast. So taking that forward, if it does happen to continue to be a tornado threat, that's going to come up towards Busby, towards Longworth, and also towards Roby. Then to the north of that, another tornado warning here. And I'm going to jump back to that very quickly. Another tornado warning in effect for near Rotan and Fisher County. Let's look at the velocity data there. And still some evidence of rotation. It looks like it's broadening out, but still some evidence of that. And that's going to be coming up towards Pastura at about 9:50. And so, Mike, let's get out to Mike Bettis in Oklahoma City. And Mike, we've got a very long way to go in this event. I mean, the instability has been crazy today. It's been just off the charts. And so, even as it begins to come down, which it always does at nighttime, even as it starts to lower a little bit, it's still going to be more than enough to fuel a severe threat and a very heavy rain threat right through the night tonight.
Oh, absolutely. We think this thing is going to go on for hours now. I want to let you know, by the way, we've just moved our crew inside because we've had quite a bit of lightning out there, and so we felt it was just better safe than sorry than to be out there in the lightning and risk it, right? But to your point, yes, Carl, absolutely. The instability has been incredibly high today. And usually during the day, you can get the daytime heating. We thought we had the wind profile and low-level shear, and that would have been enough to get a lot of tornadoes going today. Yes, have we had tornadoes? Absolutely, we've had tornadoes today, but now it looks like that threat itself may be coming down a little bit, but we transition over to a flash flood risk now because of the copious amounts of rain that we're going to pump out of the system, and now we have flash flood warnings that do include parts of Oklahoma County, by the way, Carl, and already an inch of rain has fallen, with heavier rain still to come, which just means all that water is going to sit up on top and it's going to run off, and we're going to have a lot of streets that go underwater.
Certainly a huge worry. Very quickly, I want to get you up to date on a new tornado warning for Fisher and Jones counties. This is going until 9:45 Central Time. And here we see a circulation and what looks to be a tornado vortex signature, a pretty tight little rotation that is now west of 70. And that is going to be lifting up and across 70. So moving towards Longworth, Sylvester, as well as McCauley, and also into Nienda about 10:04 or so. So a tornado threat for all of those areas. Want to get to your safe place right away if you're in those areas. I don't know if we're going to go back out to Mike at this time. Let's take a look at the instability. This is just amazing. So, you can think of instability as fuel for thunderstorms, and you've got these different categories: weak, moderate, strong, and extreme. And so what we saw today, this afternoon, was strong to extreme across parts of Texas. Now the extreme is backing off, but it's still very strong. So again, there's a lot of fuel for these storms to keep going for a very long time to come. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at the model forecast and show you how this may play out. You notice that we see some additional development there into West Texas, some big lines of storms and maybe some embedded supercells within that line of storms. More heavy rain coming across parts of Oklahoma. Then into the overnight hours, that big mass of rain comes up into Oklahoma. So the heavy rain threat will continue. Welcome back to our coverage of severe weather. This is one of those nights where you really got to pay attention and really be aware of what is going on in your area. Very high-end severe threat today has come down slightly, but there is still a threat for all hazards, tornadoes, large hail, damaging wind, a lot of lightning, and also flash flooding, especially into parts of Oklahoma. It's already been very bad, widespread areas of 3, 4, 5 inches of rain. Let's take a look at some of the warnings that we've got right now. One of those off to the west of Abilene, tornado warning in effect for areas north of Sweetwater, that is Fisher and Jones counties under warning, and a pretty vigorous rotation here. It is broad and we're shooting fairly far up. Nonetheless, certainly something to be concerned about. That's coming across Route 70. And it's going to be moving into Longworth, into Sylvester, into McCauley, and also into Hamlin. So in any of those areas, please get to your safe place right now. Possible tornado coming your way. This thing has been very impressive on and off over the last, say, 30 minutes or so. Then off to the north of that, watching some severe thunderstorms. Got a line of strong winds coming into the 83 corridor. Then well north of that, moving up towards the Red River, Tillman, Wichita, Will Barger counties under warning for damaging wind. And then you've got this crazy area of lightning that is going to be moving up into 44 and eventually into Oklahoma City. So a huge light show on the way here and a lot more in the way of heavy rain on the way. Now, as we get into central parts of Oklahoma and northeast Oklahoma, ongoing tornado warning, and that for Rogers and Tulsa and Wagoner counties going until 9:45. I'm going to take a look at the velocity data in this case, and this is right on top of the radar, and not seeing anything that really pops out right away here, but certainly there's a little notch there, and so some potential for a tornado in the area near 44, that moving off towards the northeast, so maybe towards Justice and Pryor as well. And then you see all these individual cells that are popping up south of that. They are firmly in the area of greatest instability, so I'd be watching those, and a lot of these are showing some signs of rotation. Certainly something to be aware of. Also a huge lightning show here now coming into that 44 corridor. And one other thing I want to show you, get you a little farther to the west, there is Oklahoma City, and so the rain really has not totally let up. And then we've got even more coming in from the west there. And we want to go out to Mike Bettis, and Mike has been reporting on all the conditions there. We had a gust of cool air initially, and then the thunderstorms came in with the damaging wind threat, heavy rain off and on, Mike, and now another huge round on the way. And so, you know, this is going to be one of those nights where we could wake up to a much different situation. Could be really, really bad in terms of the extent of the flooding around the metro.
And I think just waiting and watching that next slug that comes in here is going to be a tough pill to swallow for us here in Oklahoma City, because we're soaked now, you know, in parts of Oklahoma County under a flash flood warning that have already picked up an inch of rain. And a ground that doesn't really want to handle a whole lot more. We've done pretty well for rain so far this winter and spring in Oklahoma. And now you talk about a slow-moving complex here, Carl, that could produce, potentially in spots, another half a foot of rain between now and the time you wake up tomorrow morning. So the conditions could be completely different for you. You may wake up and look out and your street could potentially be underwater. And so I think that's why we really need to be aware of what happens overnight tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if there could be some spots along creeks and streams that may need to evacuate tonight. But what you don't want to do is put yourself in a situation where you're on the road and you require something like a boat rescue. Those are preventable. You know, being washed away in a flood is completely preventable, Carl. We talk about this a lot. Turn around, don't drown. Don't drive yourself purposely into a disaster that you could have avoided altogether.
Yeah, and we've seen that happen so many times. And, you know, one thing I wanted to show folks here is this outlook from the Weather Prediction Center showing the flash flooding potential going through tomorrow morning, Mike. And so there's this little corridor that is very likely. So it is very likely that we will see flash flooding from Oklahoma City on northward and then on into Tulsa. All the storms redeveloping along the front there. And Mike, that boundary is just not going to move very much at all over the next several hours.
You know, Carmen, we focused a lot on Oklahoma City, but I look at some of those storms that have been along I-35 all day long today. I think about a place like maybe Guthrie up towards Stillwater. It has rained heavy there quite a bit today, so now you throw more rain into the mix along a very slow-moving system. I think areas north of Oklahoma City in particular could be very vulnerable overnight tonight, but then you look at a concrete jungle like Oklahoma City where you don't have a lot of grassy surfaces. You've got a lot of concrete here, and that concrete's going to cause a lot of runoff. Be very aware of flash flooding when you wake up tomorrow morning.
Stormy night, and we continue to follow those storms here as we watch our very own Charles Peak and his camera shot here in Oakland Union, Texas. You see what he's dealing with, those flashes of lightning showing up, the raindrops coming down as well. And we've seen just prolific lightning makers with some of these storms. And of course, we've also been dealing with storms producing damage, we've seen tornado issues, flash flood issues, you name it. We have dealt with it here this afternoon and now into the evening hours as well. Let's show you what's going on the radar picture, and you can see what's happening here. This is in the Midland area, just to the west there of Midland. Got some big storms rolling on through here. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect there with that particular storm tracking on off towards the east. These storms are really fired up very quickly. I mean, if you took the radar back to about 9 o'clock, those storms there west of Midland, they were not there. So these things have really erupted very, very quickly, and in a short order have gone severe. So we got to really watch out. There you go, 9:05, barely saw any returns on the radar, and then boom, about 10, 15, 20 minutes later, you're dealing with a full-blown severe thunderstorm that is in place there. So big storms really getting their act together. Here's how things are faring a little bit farther to the north and the east from what we just showed you there on the radar in Oklahoma City. And we've been watching a line of showers and storms to the west. It's been taking its time, making its way into the city. Finally, we've seen that, and they are certainly producing quite a bit of rain right now. You see that rain bubbling up there on the ground. This windshield wipers, they're working pretty hard at this point. And there's that line of showers and storms, which continues to move on through at a pretty slow pace. And that's one of the reasons why the flood potential is there. Flood risk is there for us with these storms dumping a lot of rain. We've seen some of the radar estimates here for us. In some cases, 3-4 inches of rain, and locally even some higher amounts here for us in some of these areas. So it's been a lot of rain that's come down. Flood issues here for us. We've seen reports of rescues taking place, not just that they're in the Oklahoma City area, but even working your way up towards Kansas. Heavy rain has been taking shape there as well. So it's been quite an active afternoon. And again, this continues into tonight. You tend to think that into the nighttime hours, we would see things settling down, but that's not the situation this time around. That threat does continue, unfortunately. Let's get you to what's happening right now on the radar again with the storms that continue to bring us that rain. And the line of storms is in place. I mean, we've got the rain extending all the way into Missouri, and you got a couple of warnings that are showing up there in terms of flash flood warnings. All these green areas, those are all spots that are under flash flood warnings right now. So this is a huge zone here for north central portions of Oklahoma, working on into Kansas right now. Let's get a little bit tighter, show you what's happening with the radar picture, and you see still some rain ongoing here for us. They're just west of Oklahoma City. Another batch of rain trying to move its way on in right into this area that is under a current flash flood warning. That warning is out until 10:30. We'll see if they maybe expand that and extend that beyond that time frame, 10:30 local time, because again, more additional heavy rain is coming right back in. We head towards the Tulsa area, Osage, Rogers, Tulsa counties until 2:45. You've got a flash flood warning in effect there for you, and you can see this line of storms slowly sagging on through, and it's very, very heavy rain to deal with as well. So that's one of the reasons why that flood warning is in place. It's one of those nights where you don't want to be heading out and about. If you are heading out and you see the ponding on the road, you got to make sure you're turning around, finding another route to take. It's just not safe. These are some of the 3-hour rainfall totals here estimated by the radar. Those yellow areas, 3 to 5 inches of rain. Well, the severe threat does continue as we head a little bit farther north. Justin Michaels in Wichita, Kansas. And Justin, that's an area where the rain is really going to be the issue here for us. At least the bigger risk is that flood risk there.
Yeah, Alex, flash flooding is a major concern here. In fact, right now there's a flash flood warning. There's an aerial flood warning, and that's extended all the way through the next couple hours. So if you are out right now or you're planning to go out for a late evening trip somewhere, make sure you have that in mind. Make sure you're remembering that simple phrase. We say it so much, and it still is so important. Turn around, don't drown. In fact, earlier this evening, we did catch up with Cody Sharvett from Sedgwick County Emergency Management. Wichita, Kansas is in Sedgwick County, and he was talking to us about the really surefire way of staying safe in severe weather like this. Listen right now.
Number one, don't go out and travel around if you don't have to on a night like this. And of course, if you do come across water-covered roadway, we've been preaching it for years. You have at the Weather Channel, we have in the local EM, local media. Everybody says it, but nobody seems to listen. So I'll say it one more time. Turn around, don't drown. There's just no risk worth putting your life in jeopardy like that. You find that dry way around and get to where you're going, even if it takes a little bit more time.
Or better yet, just stay in.
Better yet, just stay in. If you don't have to be out, stay at home.
It's good advice. Just stay in if you absolutely can. So as far as threats go tonight, flooding rains. Also the potential, we just heard some thunder go through, so thunder and lightning. Also the potential for damaging hail, maybe 1 inch in diameter. That's pretty big, about the size of a golf ball coming down that can do damage to your car, it can do damage to your home. So be warned about that throughout the course of this night. And this is really going to continue to rain here in Wichita all the way through tomorrow morning, maybe even getting closer to lunchtime. Something else that's going to happen is the temperatures are going to slowly but surely continue to rise. Right now, it's in the low 50s, feels like temperature because of the wind chills around 47. But by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be in the mid 70s. And by Wednesday, we're going to be in the 80s. So it's going to warm up. But I'll tell you what, it is a frigid, and that's a weird way to describe it here in the month of May, but it's a frigid evening tonight. So make sure you're planning for that as well if you have to head out. But again, best just to stay in. The Weather Channel is going to stay live for you to keep you safe throughout this night.
A new video into us here. This coming in out of Oklahoma, lone wolf of a shelf cloud. And you can see that coming towards us there, that ominous looking cloud. It's hanging a little bit lower there for you, coming towards you. And then eventually we should start to see some rain coming on down eventually from this thing. But yeah, I just show you these shelf clouds can be pretty impressive as they roll on by. Again, this was time-lapse video coming in out of Lone Wolf, Oklahoma. You get a line of storms developing, and that rain-cooled air pushes out away from the storm itself, and you eventually form those low-hanging clouds that essentially looks like a shelf, and there comes the rain right on cue. All right, well, let's focus in on what's happening right now. Let's bring in our storm specialist, Carl Parker. He's watching these storms, and Carl, a lot of storms ongoing for us here at this time, and we've even seen some new storms developing, particularly back in across parts of West Texas.
Yeah, that's right. So we're watching an upper level low coming out of New Mexico and towards West Texas, and so that is increasing the lift in the atmosphere, and the model's picking up on this earlier today. So we are now seeing more development even at this late hour in West Texas in particular. That's going to be the area that we really need to focus on in terms of severe potential over the next hour or so here, and we'll take a look at what's going on there in a moment. Here's that big upper low that I talked about. That's now beginning to pull out, and so here you see that new area development just exploding across west parts of Texas. Thunderstorm tops getting up to 60,000 feet with those storms that are now moving into Midland. Do have a tornado warning to tell you about, and that is now just west of Anson, Fisher, and Jones County under warning until 10:15. Still seeing a very impressive rotation now near McCauley. We're shooting fairly far up in this case, and so not getting as good a look at what's going on in the lowest levels of the atmosphere, but there may actually be some debris showing up there. Heads up in McCauley, you've got a really strong circulation now just off to your west and getting ready to move in the next couple of minutes here, so you've got almost no time to get to your safe place. Then Hamlin at about 10:04 and Pastura at 10:16. Tornado possibly coming your way, so please take cover immediately as that continues to move in. Also looking at another storm. I'm going to go back very quickly into this area because there is another warning and yet another cell here. We actually watched this warning earlier associated with the cell we just talked about, but now another one that is coming into that area. And yet the warning continues in this area. So right in that area where you see that notch, that's where we'd be looking at a potential tornado. So let's just track that out and see where that's going to be headed in the next few minutes. Coming up towards Roby at about 10:22 or so. Looks like a more rural area there in Texas. Now, off to the southwest, we get you down into Midland. Here, that little line segment, this is the area that just exploded in the last 45 minutes. Again, the tops of these storms up to as high as 60,000 feet. Strong winds now coming into Midland as we speak, and we're getting strong wind right down to the ground there. When you see that kind of wind at radar level or just above it, then you know there is a really good chance that that's exactly what you're getting. There's an inbound velocity of 57 miles per hour. That's probably just a couple of hundred feet off the ground, if that. Then well to the north, we're looking at some severe thunderstorm warnings on either side of the Red River. Big complex of storms, so another round of very heavy rain now coming into Oklahoma City. And look at all the lightning associated with that. You know, that's one of the things that you see on a day when you've got a lot of instability, really warm and really humid air. And look at this. I'm going to take a look at I'm going to query this area. And there you go, 2,066 strikes in that area in the last 15 minutes. So an incredibly electrical storm, and that is one of the hallmarks of having a lot of instability. Very tall clouds, and very tall clouds are more likely to produce electrical lightning. And into Oklahoma, we've got another round of severe storms coming through. More heavy rain, a severe warning there not very far away from Tulsa, and a brand new severe warning for areas west of Oklahoma City. That is Caddo and Canadian and Grady counties under warning until 10:30. 60-mile-per-hour wind is the threat in this case. And we're shooting a little bit higher in this case, but seeing some very strong wind there. You see that very well-defined leading edge of the wind right in there. Let's track that forward and see where that's going to be headed in the next few minutes. Probably going to be moving into Oklahoma City before too long, moving off to the northeast. So coming into El Reno at 10:06. Piedmont 10:24, and then Oklahoma City at 10:55. So we've got a damaging wind threat. But again, Alex, as we've been talking about, we've had so much rain already. We've heard reports of some water rescues ongoing in Stillwater, north of Oklahoma City. And there's so much more rain on the way. It's just going to keep raining all night long here in these areas with this next big round coming through. So, that would be one of my biggest concerns going through the nighttime.
Yeah, especially going through the nighttime, people don't necessarily being able to see what's on the roadways. So really staying inside is what folks need to be doing.
Right, and even then, if you're inside, but you happen to be near an area where you might get some flooding once in a while, near a creek or a low-lying area, you just need to be, aware and realize that maybe we'll be looking at some water level rises coming up here.
You said it, absolutely. Yeah. Dangerous night still ahead here for us as these storms continue to fire up out there for us. And, of course, our coverage continues all night long. We're here on the Weather Channel. We're going to have the very latest on the dangerous tornado threat, as well as the other threats unfolding now and into tomorrow. It's all team coverage that you can trust. It's on the Weather Channel.
Power flash, power lines are going to come down.
Keep going.
Holy smokes.
Sit right here. There it is. Sit right. Don't go any further.
Oh my God.
Let's do it.
Look at this.
Multiple destructive tornadoes across parts of the plains over the last few hours, including this one in Mangum, Oklahoma. The threat is not over here as we head through tonight. Could see more tornadoes like this one. It's a dangerous evening here as our tornado outbreak is underway. The weather is so dangerous that we're going to be staying live around the clock through the overnight hours. I'm meteorologist Alex Wallace And we got our very own storm specialist, Carl Parker, as well here in the lab to track these storms and continue to do so. And Carl, these storms have certainly meant business here as we've worked our way into the evening hours. They continue to maintain themselves. More continue to develop out there. And again, a dangerous night as these threats continue.
Yeah, you know, there's sort of a conventional wisdom about severe weather that it's going to tend to settle down at night. Well, you have to throw that out on a night like tonight because you've got so much instability and such a dynamic atmosphere. It's just going to keep going well into the overnight hours. And in fact, we've got a number of warnings to tell you about right now. Let's go ahead and get into Texas first of all and show you the tornado warnings that are ongoing. A lot of wind shear in the atmosphere, so a very favorable atmosphere for tornadoes, again, even into the late evening and overnight hours. Haskell County under warning until 10:15. What I'm seeing in this case is more of a wind shift line right in there. Not as much rotation, at least not right now. So it looks like perhaps more of a damaging wind threat than a tornado threat for the time being. We'll come back to that. Then Fisher and Jones counties under warning until 10:15. In this case, we're looking at a very strong rotation. That is coming towards Hamlin. So you need to get to your safe place right now. One scan ago, right in there. That's what we call a tornado vortex signature. A little bit of a dropout in this latest scan there, but that is coming right towards Hamlin. So if you're in Hamlin, you've got to get to your safe place right now. Lowest, most interior room. If you've got a helmet, that's a great idea, but this thing is rapidly coming in, now moving in probably just the next few minutes here. Let me get a look at the velocity. Now moving along towards the northeast at 40 miles per hour. So, you know, that's going to be in Hamlin in no time at all, coming in the next 2 to 3 minutes into Hamlin. So please, if you're in Hamlin, you've got to get to your safe place right now. You've got a possible tornado coming your way, and we've been seeing some pretty strong and tight rotation showing up on this storm in the last few minutes here, and that looks like it's going to come right into the town of Hamlin. If not right into downtown, it's going to be really, really close. So please, again, get to your safe place right now there. All right, farther southwest, another storm that we're watching, Fisher County. And again, in this case, seeing a little bit of an S-curve there. So there is some rotation, certainly, but it looks to be more of a damaging wind threat at this time. A pretty significant damaging wind threat moving to the northeast. That's going to come up into Roby at about 10:14 or so. Then off to the west of that, looking at a big line segment that just blew up here in the last hour. Andrews, Martin, Midland counties under warning for possible damaging wind. Then yet another warning, Tillman, Wichita, and Wilbarger counties under warning until 10:45. Storm coming into Frederick right now. And look at the lightning with these storms. That is now just off to the west of Oklahoma City. Got another big round of heavy rain coming in. And you look at the radar over the last 3 hours here, and you can see what's been going on. There's this huge area of storms that really has not moved that much. The boundary that's been triggering the storms is sagging ever so slightly down to the south, and now a new round is coming in from the west. So a whole new round of concerns. You're under a flash flood warning right now in Oklahoma City, and you've got a new area coming in. Caddo, Canadian, Grady counties under warning for damaging wind and also for heavy rain here. And there is a look at the leading edge of that strong wind. That is now just about on top of El Reno. That, of course, the area that was hit by a devastating tornado a few years ago. And taking that off to the northeast, that'll be coming into Oklahoma City about 10:41, moving northeast at 50 miles per hour. And that's one of the hallmarks of the storms today. They're moving very quickly because there is so much wind in the atmosphere. Also coming into El Reno here in the next couple of minutes. Now off into areas east of Tulsa, Rogers, Tulsa, and Wagoner counties under warning until 11 p.m. for possible damaging wind. You've got flash flood warnings that are widespread. Alex is going to talk more about that in a moment. Also, warnings now getting up into the Springfield metro. That is Berry and Lawrence counties under warning. And I'm guessing just based on the look of, yeah, that's exactly right. Just based on the look of the reflectivity that we've got some really strong wind now just off to the west. And, you know, this is really low. When you're this far away from the radar, you know, you're talking about this just being maybe a couple of 100 feet off the ground. There you go. That's only 12 miles from the radar. Let's get a look at some of the velocities that are showing up there. That is a 70 mile per hour inbound velocity that, again, is probably just a couple of 100 feet off the ground. So that is not very far away from Springfield at all, coming towards 44 right now, moving towards the east, maybe just a little north of east. That'll be moving into Republic at 10:19, into Brookline at 10:22, and into Springfield at 10:29. So, larger picture, when we look at the instability, it has been on the moderate to strong side across vast areas of the Southern Plains. And so that's why there's so much fuel to keep everything going. And so that is the area of concern through the rest of the night tonight. Very likely that we are going to see severe weather. Central Oklahoma, back down through North Texas, a new area developing here in West Texas that's going to pivot up and into central parts of Oklahoma overnight. So this threat is going to keep going for a long time. And, you know, Alex, we've also been talking about the heavy rain. So many areas have been hit hard. We've heard about water rescues already. And now we're going to be going into a new round of big, massive thunderstorms coming up across these same areas that have been hit so hard.
Yeah, that's the problem is, you know, it gets replaced by more rain.
Yeah.
So flooding, no doubt, a big, big risk. All right, thanks, Carl. Well, we're going to take a look at some of the destructive tornadoes that we've already seen. This happening in Paducah, Texas here. We actually had some buildings that were damaged. You see, if you squint just a bit there, right in the middle of the screen, you can kind of see the funnel that is hanging down here for you off in the distance. We actually showed you some video earlier of a tornado that moved close to the town of Mangum, Oklahoma. Listen to one of our storm trackers who came pretty close to the tornado.
Wow! It's gonna be a violent tornado. Look at that, multi-vortex. Strong tornado, it's about to cross the road right up there. Right where we were at. Look at it, look at the motion. It's gonna be a violent tornado. Okay, it's crossing the road. Prepare to go back to that highway and follow it north. Horizontal vortices. Violent tornado.
Wow, pretty amazing video there. You see it working its way across the screen from left to right, moving at a pretty quick pace. These things were moving earlier today. Speeds for some of these storms, 50 plus miles per hour. So they were certainly screaming and moving very, very fast. Well, we do want to get you up to date now on some of the information that we are getting in. About 30,000 customers are without power tonight across Texas and Oklahoma. Because of the flood threat all the heavy rain, Stillwater, Oklahoma schools, they're going to be closed for tomorrow. And right now, about 8 million people do remain under tornado watches. So still a very active night. Well, joining us now on the phone is our storm tracker, Charles Peak. And Charles, you're seeing some damage here from some of the storms here from earlier. Can you sort of describe what you saw from the damage?
Yeah, when I got into the Mangum area, it was several buildings that I was able to get at that point in time from the drone. I later found out there were some other areas that were hit, but another line of storms pushed through and had to push me on to the east there. So I wasn't able to really explore the rest of the town. But quite a few buildings there. There were power lines down, blocking several different roads in and out of town as well.
And was this a mostly rural area?
Mostly rural. You had that one town, I don't know the population of Mangum. I wouldn't think it was very large, but there were enough of a small community to be impacted once it got hit there.
Now, Charles, where you are right now, what are you experiencing or what are you seeing?
I'm in Snyder, Oklahoma, or just south of there. Just a vivid light show with the lightning here, this line that is pushing towards to the east and ultimately Oklahoma City. I'm going to try to bust through it if I can safely and get on 44 and try to get up there to Oklahoma City to cover the flooding here and as it gets into town there.
Now, have you seen much in the way of flooding as you've been traveling around today?
You've had, as we've come through some of the communities, you've had, what I would call minor street flooding in the low-lying areas. You may have a foot of water there where, as the cars go through it, it makes big splashes, but I haven't had any stalled vehicles or anything like that I've come across. And
you said you do plan on trying to make your way back over towards Oklahoma City?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm working for right now and everything. We'll see how this line goes through, see if I can get through it without roadways being too flooded or anything.
All right, well, that's our very own Charles Peak. They're heading on over towards Oklahoma City, trying to get a good vantage point on the things there. Of course, the flood threat will remain in place in and around OKC as we head on through the rest of tonight. In fact, here's what's going on right now. We've got quite a bit of wet weather that continues across parts of Oklahoma, starting to spread into the state of Missouri as well. A lot of rainfall in these areas and more developing on off towards the south and the west. And this is all going to press on off north and eastbound to replace some of the rain that we're seeing right now. Let's get in tighter. There's OKC right now, and just to the west, another line of showers and storms moving on through with some pretty heavy rain. Blaine, Caddo, as well as Canadian counties here. That includes the cities of El Reno, Piedmont, Watonga as well. Until 10:30, you are under a flash flood warning there. So for about another 20 minutes or so, dealing with that in that general vicinity. We'll work our way off towards the wards of the north and the east. Another flash flood warning in place for Logan, Noble, Payne counties. Now, this is north of Oklahoma City, south of Ponca City here. So you're working right along 35, including Glencoe and Perry. Perry is a spot that's actually seen some flooding issues there. And there's been a number of reports coming into the zone as well. There would be flood reports, rainfall amounts around even Wichita there in the Kansas area. The Tulsa area has been reporting some issues, and up into Independence there in Kansas, 6 to 12 inches of water over Main Street there in Independence. So we've seen a lot of issues here for us, and that is expected to continue as we bring in more additional rainfall. 3-hour rainfall totals here for you, estimated by the radar. Look at the zone right there, and you see some yellow areas poking through. 3 to 5 inches estimated by the radar. So it's been a lot of rain coming on in. Flood watches, they are in place. That'll be in place here for us for the rest of tonight and into tomorrow as well. So a very dangerous night indeed, as we have an area here that's very likely to deal with flash flooding here for you. We've got that including Tulsa as well as Oklahoma City, and even surrounding that in the yellow zone, likely to deal with that as well. So a larger footprint here that extends across Texas, Oklahoma, even into Arkansas, and there into Missouri and Kansas as well. So a pretty large zone that flooding is going to be an issue that we have to watch. Here's what it looks like. Rain as we work through the rest of tonight. That batch moves on by, but look, another batch replaces that as we head through the overnight, and that is no doubt concerning as we bring in additional rainfall all over the same spots.
All right, Alex, got some new tornado warnings to tell you about right now, and I'll tell you, it's been a really active night, and it's just not letting up. We've got a number of warnings that have popped up in just the last few minutes here. Let's go into northeastern Oklahoma and show you a warning that is not terribly far away from Tulsa, and what we're looking at on the radar is what we call a tornado vortex signature. That tight little area right there is a likely tornado, and that is now moving off to the northeast. Let's take a look at where that's going to be headed in the next few minutes. We actually had a report of a tornado in this area as well. That'll be coming into Leonard in about 7 minutes, 10:17, Coweta 10:27, and then a power plant beyond that 10:29 or so. But a very tight little circulation now coming up towards Route 64. So a likely tornado in this case. Again, there was an observed tornado in that case. Cherokee, Mays, and Wagoner counties until 11 p.m. Also looking at a potential tornado near Wagoner right now, and that is going to be just about on top of you in Wagoner in the next couple of moments, 10:14 or so. Then coming into Yonkers at 10:27, Ballou 10:38, and Locust Grove at 10:43. Possible tornado coming your way. Let's look and see if we can see any debris in this case. And I'm not seeing anything that is clear cut at this time. I'd say it's ambiguous at this time, but we'll continue to keep an eye on that. This is an area that we were talking about moments ago. You've got all of these cells that are popping up well to the south of the main area of storms, and they're popping up in areas where you've got just plenty of instability, a lot of fuel for storms to develop. Big line coming into Oklahoma City right now. Caddo, Canadian, Grady counties under warning. Some strong wind just off to your west. That's going to be moving in the next few minutes. A lot of lightning with these storms as well. Then down into Texas, we've got tornado warnings to tell you about. One of those in effect along the intersection of 380 and 277. That is Haskell County under warning. Looks like we've got more of a damaging wind threat right now than anything else. Then to the south of that, Fisher and Jones counties under warning. This came very close to Hamlin, and it broadened out right as it came towards Hamlin. So you can see right in there, still pretty tight. So there could very well have been a tornado, especially on the west side of Hamlin. And then it just started to broaden out right as it passed off to the north there. Let's hope that they did not get hit. Then to the southwest of that, new warning for Fisher County. County. That is going until 10:30. And so the area that we're watching is that little inflow notch right there that is near Roby right now and moving northeast. That'll be coming into Roby in just the next few minutes. So please get to your safe place right now in Roby. And farther west, got another big severe thunderstorm warning for Glasscock, Howard, and Martin counties, looking for possible damaging wind in this area. So again, these storms are showing no sign of letting up. Everything's still very much in place. It is going to be a very long night. Stay with us for our continuing coverage. Welcome back to our coverage of severe weather. We have been watching storms going and going and going tonight. They are just not slowing down. Let's take a look at some of the warnings now. And we've got a couple of tornado warnings to tell you about in northeast Oklahoma, southeast of Tulsa. One of those in effect here. Let's get a look at this very quickly. And this tornado warning in effect for Okmulgee, Tulsa, and Wagoner counties. We were looking at the velocity data. I'll tell you, this is just really fleeting, popped up really quickly. Right in there, you can clearly see what we call a tornado vortex signature. And then beyond that became a lot more diffuse. There was apparently an observed tornado as well. A couple other interesting areas right in here that we'll need to keep our eyes on right along the leading edge of some stronger wind there. But for right now, it looks like we've got a little bit less of a threat. Then Cherokee and Mays and Wagoner counties under warning until 11 p.m. This area is gusting out. We've got some noise showing up in the velocity data, but right in there was a little bit more of a curl right in that area. And since then, what we're seeing is wind really just surging forward. That's an area of straight line wind. So that the overarching threat here is the straight line wind as that moves over towards Lost City and off to the northeast. Moving towards Ballou, Locust Grove, Peg School, and also into Snake Creek as well. Then over into Oklahoma City, another round of heavy rain in the Oklahoma City area. We've got a flash flood warning now, and then Caddo, Canadian, Grady counties under warning for damaging wind. There's some wind coming in. Doesn't look terribly strong right now, but there certainly is some gusty wind on the way and a lot of lightning as well. And as I mentioned, we've already had so much rain there in Oklahoma City, and now we've got a lot more coming in. All right, on into Texas we go, and some new tornado warnings to tell you about. One of those in effect right now for Haskell and Jones County, going until 10:45. Let's take a look at what's going on with this. Strong rotation now showing up near Sagerton, and actually that looks like we could be looking at an even tighter rotation right in there. So let's take that forward and show you where that's going to be headed in the next few minutes. Moving up and across 283, coming into Sagerton at 10:26. So you've got just a few minutes before that moves in. Possible tornado coming your way. Please get to your safe place right now. And then Rule at 10:37 and Haskell Municipal at 10:49. Then off to the southwest of that, we've got another tornado warning to tell you about, and that is for Fisher County. In this case, I'm not seeing as much potential for a rotation. It's more of a damaging wind threat right now. Maybe a little bit of a spin showing up right in there, and oftentimes you'll see that when you have a big surge of wind. Sometimes you get little gustnados, as we call them, developing right along the leading edge. But right here, you've got certainly a damaging wind threat, and that coming up into Royston and also towards McCauley as well. Then southwest of that, another tornado warning, that for Midland County. And let's get right down into that and show you what's going on with that storm. That is now just south of Interstate 20, very close to the radar here. And as I look at the velocity data, I'm not exactly sure that I see what they're talking about, but certainly there is a little appendage there. And let's take a look at where that's going to be headed in the next few minutes. Right in there is generally where the tornado would be. And so that's going to be moving towards Midland, Sky West, 1034, Greenwood, 1056, and then also towards the J.M. King Memorial Stadium at about 1056. So I want to show you the radar and show you where we go from here. And you've got this sort of unbroken area of storms. You know, you look at this, you look at these areas that have been just slammed by rain tonight, and there's just so much more on the way. Huge round coming through in the overnight hours, more severe storms. The intensity probably coming down some, but there is potential for there to be severe weather with all hazards, tornadoes, damaging wind, large hail, right through the night tonight. So it's going to be one of those nights where it doesn't really stop. It may begin to taper off some, but it never does really stop. So, Alex, you've got to have a way to be, notified. It's going to be one of those nights when it's going to be, tough to go to bed if you're in this danger zone because you've got so much weather on the way.
Yeah, be very anxious and anxiety to follow these storms. Absolutely, Carl. Well, you know what? We're going to continue to watch this activity. We've got some video showing you what was happening across the Texas area. New video with these storms producing quite a bit of lightning. We've been tracking some of that throughout this evening, and Carl's been able to sort of track the lightning. And at one point, there was one cluster of storms that had 2,000 strikes in a 15-minute period. So these things have been prolific lightning makers here for us, lightning producing storms driving on by along with some of the other risks, including heavy rain like you see here in this particular video from our very own Charles Peak there in Texas. Now, the threat for the storms does not stop here on our Monday. We're going to keep things going into Tuesday, just pushing things a little bit farther on off towards the east. So here's what tomorrow's setup looks like. There's our area of low pressure. There's our cold front and the warm frontal boundary that extends off towards the east here. So it's going to be within this zone, what we call the warm sector of our storm system, between the cold front and the warm front, where we see the best chance for these thunderstorms to get going. That's going to be an area where the instability will be on the higher side here for us, with a little heating of the day. That'll all add some extra energy for these thunderstorms. Then we look at the mid-level winds, and they'll be driving on in here, coming in out of a south to south, sort of a southerly direction, and then punching on in will be some of that upper level support driving on in from the west. So all the ingredients coming together to once again bring us that threat for severe storms for our Tuesday. And you see the area of concern when it comes to tornadoes. 4 is here for central and southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, and then sliding into western Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and northeast Texas. You got a Torcon value of a 3. So lower tornado risk as we head into tomorrow compared to today, but still another day that we'll be tracking the skies very closely.